Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and I would argue a real Republican. We're going to be breaking down P.F. Jung debating Destiny about the Nick Fuentes question. For those of you who don't know about schizophrenic politics, Nick Fuentes is a dissident right-wing Christian nationalist who has infected online discourse on the right, and therefore the Republican Party, because the Republican Party has lost its mind. P.F. Jung is a centrist and sometimes a contrarian, but he's an insightful thinker, and I actually enjoy his content despite criticisms from my chat. Destiny, of course, is a liberal debate bro who is pretty insightful and good at content. We're hoping that while this might not be the spiciest debate in the world, it will be interesting, and as a result, we can draw a lot of cool conclusions from it. I'm going to pull in these gentlemen. We're going to let them yap it up, and we will be yapping as well.
Is that people call Nick Fuentes a Nazi if they're trying to contend with him?
It really depends on who you're talking about. I don't like to personally, because I'm more interested in just debating the ideas, and just calling somebody a Nazi is an easy way to write them off. That's boring to me. However, for older people, I don't think older people care that much. Like, there's a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, 70s where if they hear you're like, if you jokingly refer to yourself like a racist, sexist Nazi, they're just like immediately turned off. So like for my demographic and for the audience that I talk to, I prefer to just deal with the ideas more than anything else. And Nick Fuentes saying that he's a racist is like just funny. People laugh at it like, oh, he's racist. But when older people hear that, late 40s, 50s, 60s, they're like, oh, I'm a racist. Those people are like, I don't know. I don't feel good about this kid. So it's a very, very different, I think, voting population. Yeah.
Do you think Sam Hyde is a Nazi?
Or neo-Nazi, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever is like the most adjacent thing to that idea. Yeah, for sure.
Do you think it's wise to call Sam Hyde a Nazi to speak to the demographic that you're targeting?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't.
Do you remember when we talked about this?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
You were very adamant that he was a Nazi. Which, by the way, I think Sam Hyde is. He has a scary level of nihilism that seeps behind.
Dude, okay, I'm just gonna say it. I don't like this with Paul, and I love Paul. Paul and I are internet friends. Well, what I don't like about this is the endless amount of charity given to people where you can't even say something is real. Just as an example, Sam Hyde has posted unironically on Twitter that he wants, majority white European America, that he thinks that like blacks are inferior criminals, that the Jews are trying to destroy the white race, and that it's high time that we develop racial consciousness in order to fight for our racial tribe. Like, he said that, dude. Like that's, you can't, if you say all that shit, and then somebody calls you a Nazi and you're like, oh, you call everybody a Nazi. Like, fuck you. Okay. We're being descriptive here. Okay. You're anti-Semitic. You think that the Jews are a parasitic racial identity that have gone across the world in order to manipulate the nations of the world into self-destruction, and that they profit off of the death and destruction and, sin of the Goyim, of the non-Jews. And then you also don't even like anybody else either. You don't like any of the other nations. So if you want to add something like, oh, I'm a Christian nationalist, or, oh, I'm just a race realist, or, oh, I'm a neo-pagan or whatever, it's like, shut up. You know what we're talking about, right? You know what we're talking about. And the fact that you're pearl clutching over being called a Nazi after you effectively lead people up exactly to Hitler's worldview, but then at the very last second, you're like, well, I don't know if we should genocide them. It's like, okay, all right. All right, shut up.
And his eyes, that I think is incredibly destructive. And
gotcha. I don't know if I like neo-Nazi over Nazi just because Nazi could refer more specifically to some other sets of beliefs. I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's okay to identify him as a neo-Nazi, but again, I'm not as interested. People usually look to these labels when they're trying to just dismiss somebody. Like, I'd rather just talk about the ideas. But I mean, like, I do feel like he's definitely a neo-Nazi for sure. But like, I'd rather just like address the ideas and deal with them one at a time.
Yeah, this is very dark centrist of you. I mean, my whole approach is rob the people you disagree with of their only valid talking points, and then they're left with nothing else. But then the problem is that involves acknowledging that involves running the risk of, well, being accused of anti-Semitism stuff. I mean, like the example I always point to, and I point to this because it's very cut and dry, and it's also part of like Nick Fuentes' origin story, is like the whole claim that, well, Nick Fuentes talks about Jewish people having dual loyalty. And this is a classic anti-Semitic trope.
I'm excited to get into this classic anti-Semitic trope, but well, QC John, of all the reasons to hate PF Young, the most acceptable reason to hate him is because he's a Bears fan. Something that I saw that was actually really wholesome and cute on Twitter the other day was there was guys who were selling the Cheesehead hats. Okay, they were making the Cheesehead foam hats and selling them on the internet, and they got a cease and desist from whoever the Cheeseheads are. I forget, Wisconsin, something. So what they did instead is they were like, okay, well, F you, we still want to make money, and we have all of this like logistical equipment for foam cutting hats. So what we're going to do is we're going to make cheese grater hats. And so instead they have like the silver with like the holes in the side and all that kind of stuff. And they started making cheese grater hats. And I think they were selling them to Bears fans. And then their business like has done really well, even though they were almost tanked by the Wisconsin cheese people. Pretty dope.
It's like, okay, well, if you say all Jews have dual loyalty, then that is. And if you say that someone's genetics predisposes them to be an untrustworthy person, then that is degenerate and anti-Christian, I would say. But like someone like Ben Shapiro, who said verbatim, the single biggest guarantor of my loyalty to the United States is the existence of the state of Israel. Have you seen that clip?
No,
He's on stage.
I haven't seen it. I mean, I take your word that it exists, but
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, the verbatim quote is, the single biggest guarantor of my loyalty to the United States is the existence of the state of Israel. That is very clearly someone who, in my mind, it's perfectly reasonable to listen to that, contextualize it with the fact that he is an Orthodox Jew whose religion compels him to care about Israel. And you could say, it seems like Ben Shapiro cares more about Israel than the United States. That is among the most mundane, common sense observation. And I think the problem is people label that as anti-Semitism. And then you have syndrome, if everything's anti-Semitic, nothing is. And then that allows the genuine anti-Semitism, like, saying, well, because Jews are a particular genetic group, none of them can be trusted. I think it allows that to be trafficked in. So what do you think about?
Couldn't that just be true? Is that even? Let's start at the very basic thing. Is that even a bad thing? Let's say that's true. Is it a bad thing?
What's true? That Ben Shapiro has more loyalty to Israel than the United States?
Yeah.
Is it a bad thing? As an American, I think that is not in America's interests, but it's a perfectly rational and reasonable thing if you're a Jewish person, especially if your religion.
On a very abstract, or maybe there's a less abstract and more applied level, as applied to like an individual, if they have like some higher level of allegiance to their country of origin, or for Jewish people, it's a little different because they have like their one country versus the United States, but it, let's say this is all public. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Would we say this is a negative thing?
No, I mean, it depends on how it's manifested. I would say
Okay.
if
I would
this
agree with that,
person-
with what you just said there. I would agree with that 100%. I think there are times where it could be really bad. I think there are times where it's like, oh, like I would kind of expect that, right? When I was married to Melina and she was in the United States, albeit for a short period of time, I don't know if I would ever have expected her to love the United States more than Sweden. So like if she was like in the political position as president, this is why presidents have to be a naturalized citizen, right? Or born here or whatever, right? I don't know if she would make the decision to nuke Sweden to save the United States. So I think that this dual loyalty concept, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It could be. You just have to see how it plays out, number one. And then number two, I think it's also a little bit weird because the United States is so much more powerful than Israel that it also changes it a bit. Like imagine if you were a dual citizen in Israel and your main allegiance was to the United States. I think as an Israeli in a country of 10 million people, you would look at somebody whose allegiance is to a country of 330 might be like, you need to get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then this is also augmented by the fact that people feel like Jews are disproportionately in positions of power in the United States. And then there's the whole back and forth, but yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I would start.
Sure.
There.
Okay.
So,
well, we can pick, well, let's narrow in on two specific examples.
Sure.
This first one, just anecdotally, I had a Israeli settler in the West Bank call into one of my streams, and he told me he voted in the U.S. election by mail because he's technically a citizen of the United States. And it's like, that's deeply concerning that Israeli settlers are voting for people in the United States. Now, is that like going to swing the election? No, but that's just a very specific example of this is very clear.
Well, probably, but any U.S. citizen who lives.
So I just want to point this out real quick because I think it's worth pointing out. You know, I'm okay with PF Jung principally having something against dual loyalty. I also think that Americans should be American, okay? We should be obsessed with the continent of the United States. We should be obsessed, or excuse me, the continent of the United States is an aspirational statement. We should be obsessed with our hemisphere. We should be obsessed with our country. We should be obsessed with our people. We should want our people to do well. We should wake up every single day. We should, you know, work our jobs and take care of our family and pay our bills and maybe pay our taxes. That's my concession to patriarch and grassroots hegemon is maybe we should pay our taxes, maybe a little bit of light tax fraud. But we should do those things because we want to make our world a better place, right? So when it comes to loyalty to my loyalty to Ireland or or somebody else's loyalty to Israel, we shouldn't be putting a foreign country ahead of our own, right? Now, with PF Jung has already articulated perfectly why Ben Shapiro thinks the way that he thinks, but I also don't think it's that big of a problem if you'll consult your screens real briefly. My single greatest guarantor for for support of the United States is the continued existence and support of the state of Israel. So as a Orthodox, conservative, Zionist Jew, Ben Shapiro allegedly said that that clip allegedly exists. I still think that this doesn't contradict what I believe Ben Shapiro would probably say, which is my second greatest guarantor of support for the United States is my continued existence and not being murdered in the United States for being a Jew. And I don't think that these things are like contradictory. So if we have somebody who wants us as a nation to support their nation of origin, that is perfectly acceptable within the realms of liberalism, and their own continued existence within our country could be a close second priority. And that's not mutually contradictory. All right, I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back to it. I'm engaged with chat for a second. Doomed Lady says, can either establishment party or politicians be trusted? No. The rampant greed and corruption at the expense of hardworking Americans makes me sick. We need working class American people in office. Well, the problem is, Doomed Lady, if you look at AOC, or if you look at Rashida Tlaib, or if you look at Ilhan Omar, or if you look at, I guess, Bernie Sanders, or if you look at any of those people, they just get co-opted by the machine. So in my opinion, it's not even the quality of person who's in office. It's the ideas that bubble up into the zeitgeist to the point that they get implemented by our legislative body. I think that if we focus on electing a different quality of representative, we're going to waste a lot of time and we're not going to achieve anything. Just reading a couple more chats. Christian Blair says his face is too long. If he grew out his hair and split it down the middle, he could cosplay as Arnold better than anyone. Rude. I disavow. Very rude. What I will also say, though, is PF Jung does kind of have a long face. And so I wonder if the longer hair on top is a good idea. Isn't there a way maybe he could like grow it out on the sides in order to widen his face? Either way, I disavow. PF Jung is a perfectly handsome gentleman. And any of you would be lucky to have him as a boyfriend. Slot Possum says, I keep thinking of PF Jung's name is Paul because he looks exactly like Paul from Street Fighter. His name is Paul. I think it's Paul, unless I'm just making that up. I could be making that up. Two more. Zena says, same people who will defend talking about crime statistics and IQ because they're just being descriptive, don't want to be called a Nazi, even if we are just being descriptive. Sure, you could also stop being a wussy, and if somebody calls you a race realist or a racist or a racial supremacist or a Nazi, you could be like, that's cool, but no, I'm not, and I would like to continue to talk about the problem. Like that's the other option, is just like, don't be offended by people saying mean words. It wouldn't be a Connor stream without me exploding the stream randomly. Good job, Connor. Love that for me. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. Thank you to Grassroots Hegemon for the 5 gifted. Thank you to Grassroots Hegemon for the $20 super chat that just came through. I want you to know for no particular reason. If you spam PF Young's chat with Easter Island head, it does make his spaghetti upsetty. I disavow, but thank you for sharing. All right, let me know if you guys got audio.
Was in another country could theoretically vote in the United States, right?
True, but you're right. Is, in my opinion, I think you would agree, Israeli settlers are at direct odds with U.S. interests. The expansion of settlements in the West Bank is a thing that is objectively bad for the United States.
I mean, so there's a lot of stuff at play here because we're getting from the personal to the country and then our subjective opinions of each. So I would say yes. But I would say that settlements are opposed to Israeli interest even. I would say they're bad for Israeli
I agree, 100%, yeah.
But obviously that guy would disagree. He would say, well, the settlements are good for Israel. And I think they're good for the United States as well because they strengthen Israel's foothold in the Middle East and where they're most important. Well, I mean, I would say that. I don't know if I'd be comfortable to say like objectively he's wrong. I would say
you've
that
gotten much. Wrong. You've gotten much more ameliorated over the past year or so.
No,
I don't think so at all. David Merrill says, I think the first step is a constitutional amendment to get big money out of elections, set a limit to companies' donations, no super PACs, maybe cap how much each candidate can take in. Yeah, what are the chances of that passing, though?
Well, I think I'm always where I've been at. But I would say that like I would expect him to vote the way that he feels is important. Like for as much as I would say he's objectively voting against U.S. interest, I would say that applied tenfold to every single person who voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, fair enough. Fine.
Yeah, or third time, I guess. Yeah.
Fine, but you do believe that that is against U.S. interest. I guess my point is that that's a narrow.
But I think the point that Stephen just made that I want to emphasize, we tolerate people doing what they think is correct in a democracy, even if we disagree. So let's say that was an earnestly held belief by the West Bank settler where he was saying, well, if Israel successfully ethnically cleanses or ethnically dominates Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, what happens is Israel is a more stable country for the next millennia. As a result, it can be a better partner to the United States because now it's stable from a war perspective. And we have decent relationships with Syria, Jordan, the new government in Lebanon once Hezbollah is, taken out, and Saudi Arabia and Egypt. So as a result, in the long term, while we have to do a little bit of ethnic cleansing, bear in mind I'm being descriptive, not moral here. We have to do a little bit of ethnic cleansing first, but then after that, everything's going to be Gucci. That could be like an earnestly held belief. And we can believe that that is immoral, evil, vile, but that doesn't mean that it's not an earnestly held belief. It's the same thing where the loyalists during the colonial period, there were legitimate monarchic loyalists during the American colonial period who thought that the United States should not expand past the Appalachian Mountains. They actually thought that the United States should remain 13 colonies. And yet there were people in their society who was like, if we stay as 13 colonies, eventually we will be dominated and destroyed. And so a whole bunch of people were like, fuck you, fuck the crown, fuck everybody who's saying that we can't expand. We're going to expand and we're going to engage in colonization and all that kind of bullshit. So yeah, those could both be earnestly held beliefs.
For example, let's just pick a different example of like,
I need a tea refill. I'll be right back. Enjoy the psychic damage without me.
Larry Ellison. The exact quote from Larry Ellison, what was it? It was something to the effect of...
I need to hear this quote before I go back.
You know who Larry Ellison is? Head of Oracle?
Owner of Jewish?
Republican.
He's Israeli, yes.
Okay.
For 2,000 years, we were a stateless... This is him speaking to the Friends of the IDF benefit group, which is a charity for giving money to the IDF. For 2,000 years, we were a stateless people, but now we have a country we can call our own. In my mind, there is no greater honor than supporting some of the bravest people in the world, the IDF. He's the CEO of Oracle. They've explicitly said our support for Israel is unequivocal.
And he's allowed to genuinely believe that within the American Democratic Project.
His son is the chairman of Paramount. Skydance Media owns Paramount, or majority stake in Paramount. And he appointed Barry Weiss. He also is one of the largest partners in the new TikTok acquisition that's supposed to go in January 26th.
Okay.
So, you talk about tropes. It's like, well, here is someone who explicitly is saying the greatest honor is to serve a different country. Now exercising top-down control over multiple media outlets. It's like,
okay. Also, just as a quick correction, I think this guy he's an American Jew, not Israeli, but go ahead.
I believe he has Larry Ellison Israeli origin is what I read. He's an American.
Okay. I see. I just he was born in New York City. So I don't know if he has Israeli citizenship as well or something, but.
Okay. Well, then whatever.
Sure.
Source I was.
But yeah, no, I don't know. Sure, but he said what he said. Yeah.
Well, this is arguably it'd be more understandable if he's Israeli. The point is, if you have an American Jewish person with a significant amount of control and influence over, one subsection of the media, it's like,
I think that's pretty problematic. Yeah.
If you are against the U.S. Israeli, if you're against the degree to which the U.S. supports Israel, then that's bad. That's against U.S. interests.
Well, do you think there might be another more problematic thing lurking here, though?
What's the more problematic thing?
The fact that one person might be able to exercise that much control over.
Oh, I agree, 100%. Sure.
U.S. media. Like, I think that the fact that this guy might be Jewish or whatever might be like 2% of the problem, and I think like 98% of the problem with the screaming like.
Well, I would argue
to be as influential in U.S. media, right?
Well, depending on how you slice it, I would argue the fact that he's Jewish is totally irrelevant because you can be Jewish and not support the state of Israel. But
if you're going to have this level of allegiance, he's probably Jewish, right? He's probably going to be more often than not, right?
Yes. We can say hardcore Zionist.
We could say.
Subry Keller says, no, for real. How can anyone listen to PF Jung and not understand this dude is hiding his power level? What do you think he's hiding? I don't think he's hiding anything. I think he's saying exactly what he believes. He's an anti-Zionist. So why what do you think he's hiding? All right. I'm gonna yeah, but Short says Paul would have no problems with Ellison owning all that if he was anti-Zionist. Sure. But that's where if he was anti-Zionist, then anti-Zionism would say, oh, well, the Jewish people might have been promised Israel 3,200 years ago, but that has nothing to do with us. So yeah, he would think that was okay because he does evaluate Zionism and anti-Zionism as two different like moral perspectives, and one of them is correct and one of them is not correct. So I'm actually going to draw while we're doing this. I understand that PF Jung and Destiny are not like screaming at each other and yelling and all that kind of stuff, but I do think they're talking about something important. So I'm going to draw the Zionist narrative as I understand it, and I'm open to feedback and criticism on my drawing. Subry says, I think he's hiding that he shares more in common with what's the name of that dude, the one that made the reality show online who was a Nazi. Oh, yeah. Sam Hyde? Sure. But I mean, I like Sam Hyde. I think Sam Hyde's hilarious. Can I show you guys a Sam Hyde skit that I actually think is hilarious while we're doing this? It's messed up. There is blood. So, I'm just going to pre-warn you that it is like a fucked up sketch. But Sam Hyde coffee table. All right.
You're good though. I tell you what.
This is Sam Hyde. It's a sketch. It's pretty funny. I'm gonna let you guys watch this while I pull up paint and start working on stuff.
That cheese we tried that I liked, couldn't figure out what it was. It was Swiss cheese.
Oh. Well, it's been a pretty good night. It's been fun enough. I like hanging out with my brother. I like hanging out with my brother's wife, even though she is what she is.
Nick, she's got an associate's degree. I know you may think she's just a hot little package, but she's educated. I love her forever, no matter what. Isn't that right, babe?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot to love. You guys make me sick when I look at you, but it's not because of you, because you're my brother and I love you. It's this dog of a woman that you married.
Choose your words carefully, big guy. This is my wife you're talking about here. Let me tell you what we're going to do. Me and Amber, we got a new tandem bicycle. We're going to go up to New Hampshire, tool around on that. You brings Arnubius. Tandem bicycles are good, okay?
I'm getting more wine.
No, help yourself. $36 a bottle. Please enjoy it.
Yeah,
Nick, what's going on, big guy? You just tripped my wife.
Brother, I'm not going to invite you over to my beautiful home, have a wine party, so I can throw your wife through a table.
Nick, we're talking about my wife here, for Christ's sake. You just tripped her. I watched you do it with my own 2 feet.
Do you really want to sit here and go through the rigmarole?
Nick, my wife's laying here bloodied and bashed. Come on. You tripped her, Nick.
She can say whatever she wants, but I didn't trip your wife. I didn't trip you. You fell.
When my field hockey wife asked me to marry her, I said yes. And I made a vow that day to stand behind her. So you don't go tripping her.
You're going to sit here and point fingers at me, and she's going to crawl around on my $1,900 rug, bleeding from her eye sockets and trying to tell me that I shoved her through a goddamn table. You're crazy as she is.
I think you're right.
You owe me $2,000.
Is this funny? Yeah, I thought it was funny. I'm not laughing right now, but that's because I've already seen it like 5 times. Yeah, it's absurdist humor. All right. Anyways, didn't like that one. Wait. What's the dog whistle? What's the dog whistle? What's the joke? The joke, yeah, exactly. The gaslighting is successful. Yeah, the brother is a douchebag. He hates the wife. He trips the wife. He smashes her through her golden table. Instead of Sam Hyde caring about his wife and actually like going to her and being like, bro, what the hell? Like, what's wrong with you? And like, you know, taking care of her and all that kind of stuff. Instead, he just gets into a slow argument with his brother over whether or not what actually happened. And then at the end, instead of like, you know, getting upset, taking care of his wife, leaving the wine party, all that kind of crap, it's he actually like concedes to the gaslighting. And that's it. That's it. That's the whole joke. That's a whole joke. The joke is sexism. Wow, funny. I don't even know if there was there explicit sexism in that? I think the guy just hated this guy's wife. Yeah, the dog whistle is your wife being what she is. But that's probably a homophobic dog whistle. I'm too young for this comedy. Okay. All right, everybody hated that. Half of the chat is too old. Half of the chat is too young. All right, that's fine. Everybody hated it. I got it. All right, everybody hates it. Fell Runner for 5. Oil for watching Destiny calmly walk PF Young through his own logic loops, revealing that every talking point about Jew conspiracies comes off as racist. Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Back to the conversation, and I'll do the drawing, I guess.
Yeah, Jewish.
But this is my point. So people can just point this out very clearly. This is what is happening. This is why Nick Fuentes is popular and gaining steam.
Sure.
It's because these very simple, you see Ben Shapiro say, there's no greater, or what was it? The single biggest guarantor of my loyalty to Israel is my loyalty to the United States, the existence of Israel. Then you have Larry Ellison making all these moves. Benjamin Netanyahu said the most important thing to acquire is TikTok. It's the most important thing in the media war. And then you have Larry Ellison acquiring TikTok, who is a devout supporter of Israel.
Sure.
And it's like, this is my point, is, well, you don't nuke the meteor by saying, well, this is all anti-Semitic nonsense, this is all conspiracy, this is all, this is dual loyalty or Jews run the world tropes. It's like, no, this is acknowledging the kernels of truth. And then, I mean, you have to do that in order to contend with someone.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering if you agree.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't care about the anti-Semitic stuff, so we can move past the accusations. That's not interesting to me. The accusations of anti-Semitic, like, yeah, I have no problem owning or saying I think you should be able to be pretty upfront about that.
Hold on. What do you mean you don't care about the anti-Semitic?
Like you keep trying to say that like these are really uncomfortable and harsh truths. Like I'm fine confronting any of these. These are not uncomfortable things. Like I think I don't know if you're just scared to say your true position either in front of me or publicly, but like I would say that a lot of Jewish people, the majority of Jewish people, are probably viewing Israel as more special in some ways than the United States, even if they're in the United States. Even if they
religious Jews, which is completely fine. Yeah.
Probably most ethnically Jewish people.
I think the poll
this is the one place. This is the one place in the world that guarantees some sort of like ethnic protection for them, and they've been ethnically persecuted in the past. I don't even think the religious aspect is that important to it. I think the ethnic protection is more important. And if you live in the United States, Israel probably is like a
Michael H 2970 with the $1.49 super sticker. Thank you kindly. I can't see it on my end, but you just reminded me that what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to YouTube. And I'm going to start our goal. I'm going to log into my Valor Media Network account. That way I can set a goal. Why do you people say Semitic? It's Semitic. Reaching is hard. You mean reading is hard? Oh, wait, you did spell it right. Whoops. All right, hold on. Valor Media Network. Click on here, Valor, pop out the chat. Pop out, expand. That's a decent size. Let's set a goal. So 10 super chats, $2 or higher. You guys have already done 4 super chats. So technically you guys already did half of a goal, which is awesome. Matter of fact, what I'll do, no, that's fine. 10 super chats over 2 hours. Goal! All right, so I reset the goal. You guys already did half a goal as is. Shout out to Michael H with the super sticker, Fell Runner with the 5, Grassroots with the 20, and Grassroots with the 5 gifted. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat in chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. I'm going to start drawing the history of Israel with maps because I think that helps while PF Jung continues to hide his power level.
really important thing to you. You might even like,
and I'm being sarcastic. I don't think he's hiding his power level, by the way.
Prioritize that connection to Israel over the U.S. I think I'm pretty comfortable saying this is probably the case with like a decent amount of Jewish people. That wouldn't surprise me.
Well, of course, that's just objectively true. But first off, you would get accused of anti-Semitism for saying
but I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I'll say I hate Israel. I don't care about the fuck about that. Yeah, but so I'm just saying, if you're trying to be careful with the answer on that, I don't care. I don't give a fuck about those accusations. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but the next step I would say is that any weird issues that we have relating to pointing out like Jewish influence in media or Jewish.
Good God. Christian Blair says, "This is the last super chat for the year. Praise be Grill Hodism. $300. Good God, King. Kind of wish you did that on a Tuesday." I'm joking. Okay, I am joking. I'm being selfish. I'm being stupid. You just guaranteed that I have a job. Why didn't it count towards the goal? I don't know. That's mad funny, though. I guess you have to do another one. No, I'm kidding. Christian Valeris has been too kind to the channel. Grassroots Hegemon has been too kind to the channel. Patriarch has been too kind to the channel. You guys, thank you. I know, Patriarch. I was joking. I promise I was joking. Okay, I promise. Oh, man. Maybe the goal is light blue and below. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Christian Valeris. I sincerely mean it. And guys, by the way, I'm just going to share. Okay. I'm going to share with you guys. So Valor Media Network, maybe I'm putting May in front of it, maybe changing hands in ownership, but the leadership team is going to remain the same. It's still going to be Ken. So Ken's still going to be my boss no matter what happens, blah, 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 blah. The deal with Valor Media Network was, and I think I've told you guys this before, I collect a small salary, and the goal was to surpass my salary with super chats, memberships, all that kind of stuff on Valor Media Network membership. And then after 6 months, and then we continue our contract together. I think by the third month, which I'm very proud of, let's be real, 70% of it was grassroots hegemon at the time. But by the third month, we had actually surpassed the revenue that I cost. I made more money than I cost, which kind of guaranteed that I was going to keep my job and at least make it through December. And so we've made it through December. We're in, we're about to hit January. Well, in January now, because of your guys' gracious support, because of Numinax and Dr. Zayas and Gen X and Grassroots Hegemon and Christian Valeris and Well QC John and Entropy X and Lawson Harrison and all the people who either chip by giving $2, $5, $10, $20, whatever, or the people who oil by giving $50, $100, $200, $300, which Christian Valeris, besides Doobie, you're the only person dropping chats like that. Even Grassroots, he drops a 50 and then 100, then he drops a 50, then 100. He typically doesn't do 300 at one time. But either way, what you guys have guaranteed is moving into the next year. If Valor decides like, hey, we're sick of the schizo politics, that's not the way that we want the brand to be. You need to go off on your own and do your own thing. We're going to go off and do our own thing, guys. I'll go and stream on my own if they don't like my schizo politics. If, however, the new owners are like, actually, this is a great revenue source. You're doing good work. You've built a good community. We're doing XYZ ABC. We actually see this as a part of our brand. Let's keep going. Then those kinds of donations by Grassroots and Christian Valeris are what allow me to keep support from the institution so we can keep going. So Send Patriarch says, I love schizo politics. I'll follow you into the breach. Thank you, King. Thank you. Patriarch says, is Doobie even alive right now? Oh, yeah. Doobie was probably doing some Christmas stuff, but Doobie, yeah, hell yeah. Doobie's been schizo posting about Destiny being evil for at least a week. So, yeah. All right. Sorry for the rant, but I just wanted to acknowledge that I was being a little bitch. I was being a little bitch by telling Christian Valeris, like, oh, I wish you would have done that on Tuesday. That's lame of me. It is lame of me, and I am a bitch. And I could not do this without Grassroots and Christian Valeris' constant support. So I wanted to take a minute to yap and thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Patriarch says, oh, I was hopeful of the opposite. Oh, okay, I got you. Oh, man. Forgive if you get the special hat. Well, I guess now I have to get the special hat, huh? Because you did the Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, you dropped a whole bunch of oil, and then you just dropped a whole bunch of oil again, probably against the advice of your girlfriend. So now I think I need a tech issues hat, a tech issues dunce cap. I think I have to get that. Yeah. Yep. I think I have to do it. I mean, I think I think that's how much a dunce cap costs. Bob Ross wig when MS painting is a forgotten promise love. No, it's not. I still have it. I'm just not going to wear it all the time. I'm just going to throw it on every now and then as a meme. I have it. I can wear it. I don't wear it all the time. It makes my head hot. So I still throw on the Bob Ross every now and then. It's still right here. I'm not throwing it away. It's not going anywhere. Bob Ross will remain a meme in the community. I just not all the time. Same way when I have tech issues, when I'm actually legitimately angry, I'm not going to wear it. But if I'm having fun fighting my tech stuff, then I'll wear it. Anyways, I'm sorry for yapping for so long, interrupting the content. Back to them. I'm going to draw some maps of Israel and the narrative of Israel and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. But I wanted to take some time out, recognize that I was being a ungrateful bitch, and then I wanted to show gratitude by yapping for several minutes. Christian Blair says she is happy by the fire watching a shitty rom-com. As far as I'm concerned, she can... I'm not finishing that sentence, Christian Valeris. Good God. All right. That was brutal. Okay, stop. Stop. You guys are crazy. I was literally just saying to stop. Grassroots says, don't thank me. I'm sending all this stuff from Xander Hall's PayPal account. Then me and Send Patty crawl out of your walls, take all the money from your wallet, and I send you the same $100 again. Bam, easy peasy. Well, I have to love that. That seems like the perfect scheme. All right, stop. We're continuing.
Influence in certain areas, I would say like these could be problematic things, but I think these are good. I think these are good metrics by which we should evaluate the entire system instead, rather than just trying to keep the Jewish people out of these certain positions. That would be my thing, my contention. And then if we were going to go on the factual side of like how much have Jews steered U.S. domestic or foreign policy, I would say not nearly as much as they wish they could, and not nearly as much as some people think they have. And then we could do either side of that.
Sure.
Guess,
and if Jews control the world, that means Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, you, me, we're all part and parcel of the grand Mossad op. So obviously you can take it to an extreme end. I'll just tell you, you said my true position. I'll tell you my true position. Okay. Just based from first principles.
Sure.
I believe in free speech. That's like one of my core principles, like my fundamental principle. The freedom to say 2 + 2 = 4 is the most important thing. All else follows. In my opinion, Israel, the state of Israel, is doing all kinds of terrible things that are worthy of criticism.
Okay.
And what seems to be happening is that powerful interests, not Jewish interests per se, but like pro-Zionist interests, which includes Christian Zionists and non-Jews, are saying criticism of Israel is effectively anti-Semitism. Sebastian Gorka, deputy assistant to the president, said at a conference on anti-Semitism.
I believe you. I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Exactly. So now you have incredibly powerful people who are using the threat of anti-Semitism as a justification to we're going to censor speech. We're going to change algorithms. We're going to scrape the internet for anti-Israel sentiment, which includes anti-Semitism, which includes anti-Israel sentiment. And then that becomes the pretense for ushering in more Chinese-style social credit score systems, infringements on free speech. So that's why I care about the issue. And and here's the thing: it is absolutely the case that the reason many Jews feel a attachment to Israel, perfectly reasonably so, is because anti-Semitism is a real thing historically, obviously, and the more that things normalize in a way where it becomes like cool to shit on Jews and all that, it increases the validity of Jews supporting Israel. And in my opinion, in order to avoid the anti-Semitism as a justification for infringing on people's speech, is we create a scenario in space where American Jews are perfectly free and are not stigmatized in any way to simply say, I'm Jewish, but Israel does not represent my interests. And there are many, many Jewish people who believe that. And many would say it's disgusting and anti-Semitic to associate someone's ethnicity with the actions of a secular state. And then, of course, there's religious Jews who support it, and there's branches of religious Jews who don't support it at all. So
I was going to amend it with the religious statement, but he basically said what I was going to say, and I'm going to show you guys. Oh, snap. I should have kept that. Damn. Let me, before I control Z this, let me show you what I got, okay? So this is 1400 before Christ, and I think it's around 1400 before Christ. But Abraham is one of the first monotheists. The Quran actually says that the way Abraham established monotheism was he tried to worship all the smaller gods. He tried worshiping the sun, but then the sun set. He tried worshiping the moon, but then the moon went away. He tried worshiping the water, but the water came and went. And so effectively, he was worshiping all the random pagan things that everybody was telling him to worship. And he found that the things that he was worshiping kept disappearing. And so as a result, he's like, there has to be something that's in charge of all this stuff that doesn't disappear. And so he kind of stumbled upon the concept of the creator God 3,400 years ago, approximately. And so, he has some like weird covenant stuff where maybe he sacrifices his firstborn son, which he had when he was older, and then God was just screwing with him, psych. And then also his covenant with God is chopping off his dick tip, probably because he had phimosis. And then he realized circumcision was the thing. So he was like, based, everybody from now on should have circumcision. That's another weird thing with the covenant. Noah was, of course, before this, which was God's first covenant with man, which was basically saying like, hey, stop doing butt stuff. And I won't, Shlomo Vile says, bro, what? Yeah. Correct. You can say, bro, what? But you can correct me on what I'm wrong. So far, I don't think I've said anything wrong. You would have to be specific. And what is it? With like Noah, it's like, hey, stop doing butt stuff and I won't flood the world. Right? So the point is that Abraham had this thing where he didn't have kids before he had his son, where God says, you're going to have like you're going to have more kids than the stars. You're going to have more kids than there's grains of sand on the beach. And you're going to inherit this land between the Nile and the Euphrates, right? Patriarch says, I can do butt stuff if I want to, but but God might flood the world because of you doing butt stuff. So, see, but you guys are going to cause a flood. Stop doing butt stuff or you're going to cause a flood. So anyways, the point is that like, this is what the Jews were promised, right? Around 1400, 1500 BC. And I'm going to continue. He won't. Are you telling God no balls? Ding. You guys are crazy. You guys are crazy. Number one, you're saying that you're still going to do butt stuff. Number two, you're telling God no balls. That's kind of, I'm not going to lie. That's kind of crazy, guys. So anyways, I'm going to go through and draw a few more things like Egypt, like the conquest of Canaan, like the Babylonian exile, like the Persian rulership, like the Greek rulership, like the Roman rulership, then the crucifixion of Christ, then the existence of the Holy Roman Empire, then the Arab/Muslim invasions, then the Crusades, then modern Israel. Because that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about like the history of this one region of the world over the course of years and years and years and years, like millennia, man. Millennia. And I think what's frustrating to me, especially when I'm talking to characters like P.F. Jung, they kind of just say like, oh, well, the old shit doesn't matter, right? They're just like, oh, well, you can't look at the old shit because 70% of the population of Israel is Ashkenazi, which means that they come from Europe. But then it's like, why can't I look at the old shit? Like why can I safely divorce the religion, which is, 3,200, arguably, like the anthropological evidence for the Great Flood is like 10,000 years. So if the story of Noah was set 10,000 years ago, arguably the Jewish religion started like 10,000 years ago. So why can I discreetly divorce like modern Jewish people from ancient Jewish people? It doesn't make sense to me. So anyways, y'all are just trying to anger God. All right, hold on. Let me read this because this is kind of crazy. So Shlomo Vile says, bro, what? Yes, that's a story in the Quran. Rob F says, damn, the Quran is a cuter story than the real Bible. True. Horse God says, I will worship nothingness. Well, then you're just worshiping oblivion, which is, you can do that if you want. Arguably, from a God, light, and truth-based perspective, that's like worshiping Satan, but that's fine. Christian Blair says, flood the world, you bitch. Butt stuff is life. I mean, I guess I have to disavow, but I can't disavow too hard because you did oil earlier today. Rob says, Abraham is truly the product of the pre-Gunnar age. He is. We could use a flood, though. God's a pussy. Build an ark. Dude. Check the link to subscribe to my OnlyFans. You guys just want a flood, huh? You just want a flood? Beef Supreme says all the anti-butt stuff in the Bible is just because some pre-biblical incels, they have been shitting on everyone from time to time. Incels are so insufferable. Beef Supreme, you understand that like the anti-butt stuff is probably prior to proper hygiene. So people were sticking their phalluses in people's butts, and then they were getting horrible venereal diseases, and then they were dying. And then the Jews were like, yeah, that's probably bad. You probably shouldn't stick your schlong in poop because that's how you die. And then they were like, God clearly doesn't want us to stick our wangs in poop. The King Slime says, F any God that won't speak to me. If I'm not worth talking to, he's not worth loving. All right. That's kind of a selfish, childish perspective, but that's okay. Noah is a story that predates Noah. Yeah. I'm a little out of my prime, but I would drink God under the table. Where's that limp-wristed coward high? Dude, I'm just surrounded by heathen degenerate freaks tempting God to flood the world again. All right, good luck with that. Okay, quick shill, even though the Oilers have oiled. Grassroots did 5 gifted memberships, and he's done $60 via $20 super chats. Fell Runner did 5. Michael H did $1.59 super sticker, and then Christian Valeris oiled and did $300 via a super chat, which is fucking crazy. Seriously, thank you, Christian Valeris. What I would say is chippers and oilers, wait till tomorrow, okay? Because you guys have oiled and chipped enough on Valor Media Network to the point that we're going to run out the month with an excellent month. It's going to be a great month on Valor Media Network, but I, of course, have to do a rev split with them once I get past $2,000. So if you could wait until tomorrow, if you feel like donating, donate. But tomorrow, I'll be live on the home channel. And so your oils and chips are appreciated over there as well. Hey, if I'm wrong, smite me down. I'll spend my days in purgatory before I'm judged by someone that does nothing. You think God did nothing, King Slime? You're welcome for your circulatory system. But anyways, let me get back into the content. I'm getting like, I'm simultaneously having a good time and getting annoyed with your guys' heathen degeneracy. So I need to open up StreamYard again. Where's StreamYard? Why are you so annoying? This is frustrating. There we go. Because the flood wasn't possible, physics, biology, geology, it never happened, using it as a means of deterrence, protective, not that you know, religion. There was a great flood. What are you talking about? Archaeological evidence of a great flood. Archaeological evidence points to a regional flood events in ancient Mesopotamia, notable for deep silt layers and artifacts, suggesting massive floods around 3000 to 2500 BCE. So I'm sorry, it wasn't 10,000 before Christ, it was 3000 before Christ. So, still, stop coping.
Nick Fuentes, I think, he said himself he's an iconoclast. His whole goal is just saying fuck you to the whole Holocaust religion type thing, the post-war consensus idea. And so he doesn't actually care about giving space.
You guys are such fucking Reddit atheist nerds, dude. Gilroy VFX says, not the kind that is biblical. It had no effect on the world like the Bible says. Dude, have you seen a tsunami? You've seen a tsunami, right? You've seen like 40-foot tall waves of water kill hundreds of thousands of people. You saw that, right? So if you don't have Google Maps and the internet, and then a giant flood comes in and wipes out 90% of the people that you know, and you're one of the few survivors, do you think you're going to talk about that shit if you live in an era before the internet? Like, you guys are so... Gilroy, you're an arsler, bro. You're an arsler. It's just that simple. Like, hold on. I just got to pull this up. We're just gonna, number one, there's an Elysium breakdown. So I'm gonna pull that up somewhere, because that's important. Number two, I can't believe I have to show you this. It's borderline childish that I have to show you it. But let's take a look at Japanese tsunami footage.
Across northern Japan, they felt it. A violent magnitude 9.0 earthquake on March 11, 2011. It was centered about 80 miles offshore, and tsunami warnings went up immediately. In coastal cities, people knew what to do next: run to higher ground. It's from these vantage points on hills and in tall buildings that incredible footage was captured. In Kesanuma, people retreated to a high-rise rooftop and could only watch in horror as tsunami waves inundated their city, knocking buildings into rubble and mixing into a kind of tsunami soup filled with vehicles, building parts, and contents. Seawater cascaded over sea walls and into cities. This video shows the water rushing over an 18-foot seawall in the Kamaishi city. The seawall here was the world's deepest and largest, but not enough for the magnitude of the March 11 disaster. It was the largest quake ever known in Japan and one of the 5 largest recorded in the world. More than 28,000 people are confirmed dead or missing. When two tectonic plates
Okay. You guys are such like fedoras that it actually boggles my mind. It actually boggles my mind that you're even capable of being in this chat. So Gilroy, I'm about to have my mods twist your balls. As a matter of fact, let chat mod stand by to twist Gilroy's balls, because I'm going to address what he's saying, and then I'm going to have you twist his balls, or I'll do it. If I do it, it's a permanent. If you guys do it, it's a temporary. So stand by to twist balls. So Gilroy says, yeah, planet is so big. The idea of putting that amount of animals on the planet on a boat, that would have to be the biggest structure man has ever created to house the animals 2x2. You're coping. I don't literally believe in the story, you idiot. Like, welcome to the channel. I'm not a biblical literalist. Okay. Then, even if there was a flood, I highly suspect Noah is a lie, though. Yes, it's not literally true, you fucking fedoras. Eben says, I give deference and respect to religion. It moved us away from barbarism, despite our love of humanity that was respected to have empires and expand to. Yeah, it's a mythological moral vehicle. Christian Blair says, Connor is not saying Noah and his boat was real. He's saying the flood probably happened. Not only am I saying the flood probably happened, but I'm saying that if you saw this before the internet, before our understanding of earthquakes, before our understanding of science, then it would seem biblical. Okay? Matter of fact, I've lived through natural disasters. Okay? I live in Florida. We have a hurricane, every other year that hits Central Florida. It feels biblical. When you are a tiny ant in the middle of a storm that feels like it could wipe humanity off of the face of the planet, it feels biblical and spiritual, because you realize how small you are compared to the forces of nature. So the fact that I have a bunch of fedoras in my chat who are like, huh, you're showing that 3,000 years ago there was a flood through anthropology, that doesn't mean that zebras and mosquitoes were put on a boat. It's like, yeah, no shit, right? No shit. But that does mean that there was a great flood 3,000 years ago, and that people probably developed the Noah story based off of seeing a real flood. Does God hate Japanese people? Absolutely. I am normie as fuck and pass the vibe check despite being a shit lib. That's fine. Mods get his kneecaps. Damn, most people have to pay extra for that. True. I don't agree with the ball twisting this time. He has a point. The story is nonsense and a lie. Beef Supreme, you're a fucking fedora. Testicular torsion is on Tuesdays. The only reason why you're not getting your balls twisted is because I expect you to be a fedora. We know. Wait. When was Noah? How do you know? What do you know when Noah was? I don't know when Noah was. Like the Bible is estimated like to be what, like 4,600 years of history according to biblical literalists. Yeah, Rob says, I think it was pretty clear Connor was talking about a real flood inspiring Noah's Ark story. I mean, that's what it is. That's what I'm trying to say, even if I have a bunch of fedora R slurs. Dana Calicloud says, Connor, this is a practical consideration. Hygiene pre-hot showers with soap and fluffy towels was enough to cause death for bacterial infections. Agree with you on the butt stuff. Yeah, it's an evo psych argument. It's an evolutionary psychology argument. Grassroots says, and a flood like that did happen vaguely around that time, and it went for like 20 years, lol. Yes. The King Slime says, judge me, not lest thee be judged by this own measuring stick. No, God would twist my balls if I was this much of a fedora. Real serious for 100 ARS, thank you. Actually, Connor, it could have felt like biblical at the time because the Bible had yet to be written. All right, I know you're fucking with me. They should call them the Japanese with how much they bring up that nuclear stuff. Short. Oh. Beef Supreme says, I don't think there's any evidence that a flood like that happened in human history. We literally just Googled it. 3,000 years ago, there was a great flood in Mesopotamia that people would have thought was the end of the world. God, you're such a fucking fedora, bro. Yeah. Dr. Darko says 6,000 years. Literalists say Earth started October 23rd, 4004 BC. Yeah. Yeah. So hold on. And here you go. Vorpal the Fox, as a Gulf Coast Floridian, Katrina was the only hurricane. I have to get back to the content, but I had to like beat up the fedoras for a minute because they were getting crazy with it. As a Gulf Coast Floridian, Katrina was the only hurricane. We had to hide in a central room of the house for fear of our safety. That shit was borderline traumatic as a kid. Yes. Mai, is there any proof that flood happened during human history? Yes. Humanity is 100,000 years old. What are you talking about, Beef? Oh, so no global flood? Okay. Beef Supreme, if you were not Beef Supreme and if you didn't hang out in the chat consistently, I would have twisted your balls right now, okay? The point is that in Mesopotamia, ancient Babylon, ancient Iraq, which is the approximate location of where the Jewish tribe was before they were known as the Jews, there was a large flood that would have scared the fuck out of those people, that probably killed tens of thousands of human beings and wiped out entire cities. And as a result, they would have thought it was a global flood. They didn't even understand that the globe was a globe back then. So the fact that you're like, oh, well, it wasn't across the entire planet. Like, what point do you think you're making? Okay. Cisse Puede, just apologize for getting one guide and go back to the content. No, I'll go back to the content, but I'm not apologizing for shit. I'm not apologizing for shit. Yeah. There's evidence to suggest a flood, but it wasn't even that great. All right. Back to the content. Good God. So some R-slurred caveman had the wrong idea and now we can't do butt stuff? Correct. Unless you wear a condom. And unless you douche first. Correct. All right. Whatever. Fuck you guys.
Ways for Jews to condemn Israel or not identify with it as much as they do. And all the trends post October 7th seem to be indicating that a lot of Jews don't align themselves with Israel, especially the under 30 demographic. It's like 30% or more are anti-Israel.
Let's just call it the pretty decent flood. I hate you guys.
Israel. So it's like that trend should continue, but that can't happen if we're not allowed to say basic facts or basic observations like when Ben Shapiro says the single biggest guarantor of
okay. Gilroy's new. He thought I was being serious. No, I wasn't. Okay, hold on. let's break this down really, 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 really quick. I'm going to have to cut all of this out. And let's be real, I'm not going to cut any of it out. So the VOD viewers are going to be in a lot of psychic pain right now. Okay. So I was joking, to be clear, that because modern people do butt stuff and they're unapologetic about it, that they're going to cause a new flood. Obviously, butt stuff does not correlate with floods. Okay. So Gilroy, I'm assuming, is relatively new, or the content that they watched, we never talked about, like my perspectives on religion or God. I think religion, I'm a deist. I believe in like a creative and ordered force in the universe, but I do think that religion is a mythological, moral vehicle. It's mythological. There's truth in it, in that like you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't covet your neighbor's wife, you shouldn't murder people. The golden rule in turning the other cheek is a good social rule. There's truth in it for the way that you should conduct yourself as a human being, but they're mythological, meaning that I doubt that Jesus Christ was the specific incarnation of God. And so studying religion so you can understand the moral prescriptions and then apply them in your life is worthwhile, but I don't believe it literally. And I think Gilroy thought that I meant it literally. So no, I did not. I did not mean it literally. I don't think God will flood the world because you guys do butt stuff. Okay, just to be clear.
Loyalty to the United States is the existence of the state of Israel. That seems like loyalty to me. If that gets you
gross, grassroots,
called anti-Semitic, then what that does is that feeds into Nick Fuentes' ability and people far worse than Nick Fuentes.
Sorry, Real Serious says, Connor, are dragons real? Yes, they're dinosaurs. They're dinosaurs and Komodo dragons.
You know, ability to just say, well, this just proves that it's all a conspiracy and they'll shut you down for just saying facts. So that's my true position.
Although,
believe it or
I mean,
otherwise.
that's fine. One of the biggest issues, though, is a lot of people that levy this criticism don't do themselves any favors. It's very hard if Nick Fuentes is your guy to levy legitimate criticisms at people with, say, dual loyalty in a way that you think is detrimental to the United States when he is also like a Holocaust revisionist, right? Like this hurts your ability to have the conversation. If you have people who are critical of mRNA vaccines and they also think that ketogenic diets can cure Alzheimer's disease and all meat diets are the cure to, you know, fucking every form of cancer, it hurts your ability to make those medical claims. I mean, like the people that levy these claims don't really do themselves any favors, I guess. Yeah.
True. I mean, true. Again, he's gaining influence. So
maybe.
Maybe. I think it's objectively true. He's gaining influence. That doesn't mean he's right. I agree with you.
I don't know. I mean, he's very popular with young people, but young people don't vote, and young people are very swingy. We saw that.
True.
What was like 30 points in favor of conservatives, I think, at the beginning of this election for young men, and then I think that completely disappeared like 6 months in. Like young people change a lot. He could continue to gain influence as possible. He could moderate his views. He could become more extreme. It's hard to say, but yeah. But young people are very different. Remember, Bernie Sanders was a shoo-in, the most popular Democratic figure ever. He was going to win the presidency, everything, and never materialized. So, yeah. Not writing him off one way or another.
Well, because of anti-Semitism. They wouldn't let a Jewish person run for president.
True. The Jewish people control.
I mean, Nick Fuentes, the way I see, especially people, because I'm interested in how people discuss and contend with Nick Fuentes on the right or on the left. You know, there was a clip of Nick saying he would join with the left and, you know, even give up some of the abuse and cruelty on the right. And then Cenk Uygur was talking to Hassan Piker and was like, listen, if he's willing to work, like there are greater goals. And in principle, as a, you know, as someone whose mind is so open, it's liable to fall out of my head. I like the idea of, well, the populist right and populist left joining together to get the Epstein files released, decouple U.S. influence from Israel and all that, and even do healthcare and fix the border and all that. But Nick is he is a liar. Did you see Rowan? Nick Fuentes, someone just posted a clip of Nick Fuentes talking about anime. He said, I never watch anime. And then Rowan just posted a clip from like 5 years ago of Nick like doing an in-depth analysis of some anime. So it's like he's lying about the most inconsequential things.
Well, I don't know if it's like a lie or if it's just like a meme, right? Like I might say, like,
Well,
on
that's
stream, like,
I guess,
fucking
yeah,
hate
exactly.
women, and people are like, no, yesterday you were defending feminism.
Well,
Like, well, you know,
exactly.
Like,
This is
my
the problem.
movement is very much like it's still like a young man's movement, like incel-y humor, like a lot of like irony, like very heavily like masculine coded, like presentation style, performance, like very exclusive to women, intentionally so. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that he would say stuff like this.
Yeah, he's deeply irony poisoned.
Yeah, sure.
Look, there's a great story that I think Jeff Dunham, you know, the ventriloquist guy told, or Jeff Dunham is the ventriloquist guy. He told a story. I think it's like a generic story, but a ventriloquist is on the stage with his dummy, and the dummy starts, you know, criticizing an audience member, and the audience member is yelling at him, and the dummy's like, "You're stupid," and they're going back and forth, and then the ventriloquist tries to interject and say, "Hey, calm down, guys," and the audience member says, "Shut up, you! I'm talking to him." And it's like, that's emblematic of how people are treating Nick Fuentes. It's like Nick Fuentes, Andrew Tate, I think Hassan Piker, you in many ways, even Donald Trump. It's like calling him an anti-Semite, a hateful person, calling him names is just attacking. He's setting up a dummy for you to attack. And then he can retreat to his Bailey of, well, Hitler's cool. It's like, well, I just meant Hitler had cool aesthetics and it's compelling and all that, you know? And so,
sure. Although, I mean, people use that because it does still work.
What
I mean, like older people, maybe once the boomer generation is gone and X is the oldest one, and you've got like millennials as the second oldest, maybe like the whole historical revisionism around the Holocaust and all that shit will be a little bit more acceptable. But I think right now, labeling somebody as a Nazi and then them owning being a Nazi or a racist or whatever, I think is enough to turn off a lot of larger, older voting demographics from like caring about
yes,
you.
I 100% agree. I suppose I'm only concerned with long-term future trends. That's my primary.
Okay. Why does PF always interject with a random ass story? There's this old Soviet era tale about two men in a park bench. No, I understand this perfectly, guys. And what's weird is you guys are so hostile to PF Jung, but realistically, I think we share a lot of like rhetorical processes. I think we communicate things very similar. The reason why he was talking about the ventriloquist is because he's saying that the rhetoric, the spicy rhetoric, is the dummy. Okay? It's the extreme pseudo-comedic, weird, irony-poisoned rhetoric that is articulating something that's real, but it's also like a joke. And so when you're attacking the joke, then you look like an idiot because you're not taking the serious stuff serious, you're taking the joke seriously. And so he's saying for people who know that it's a puppet, who know that it's hyperbolic, who know that it's crazy, you look like a jackass. But for me, what pisses me off, and I think Destiny is articulating this just fine, where I agree with him, is that the people who are creating the dummy of the post-ironic, meta-ironic, anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-imperialist humor, those people are hiding behind that it's a joke, but realistically, they still mean the things that are undergirding the joke. And so if somebody started laughing at me because I'm taking Nick Fuentes seriously when he says something crazy, then I would say, okay, well, Nick needs to be able to defend what he's fucking saying, and he needs to stop being such a pussy where every single time that somebody confronts him on something fucked up he said, he backs off to a less crazy position. Because maybe this is a part of like being a boomer millennial or whatever, but if somebody says something extreme and then they get called out on it and then they run away from that position the second that they get challenged on it, you don't look like this like meta-ironic 4D chess playing genius. You look like a coward. And so that's where, for me, maybe this is just like a cultural perception thing where I just perceive it differently. But Piers Morgan not recognizing Nick Fuentes saying like, oh, I don't even think it's 6 million. It could be like 100 million Jews. And Piers Morgan not recognize that was like an anti-Semitic joke that he was playing into it, then that's him being a boomer. But if Piers Morgan alternatively had been like, no, you're serious about this. You actually do think that there are contradictions in the Holocaust narrative. It's upsetting to people who are in the post-World War II generation. And even if, let's say that we take your perception on the Holocaust accurately, is it not bad to dispossess people politically, throw them into ghettos, denaturalize and deport them? And if they're not willing to be denaturalized and deported, then you slaughter them. Like, and the obvious answer should be yes. And then it's like, okay, well, if we agree on that, then why are you being such a piece of shit about it? Vatsimo says, hey, did you guys see Wajahat Ali anti-white rant? Did he ever walk that back? I don't even know who Wajahat Ali is. Jonah says it's Schrodinger's douchebag. It's a joke or serious, depending on how based everyone around it you think it is. Yes. Yes. Big Leafy Tree for $7 says Schrodinger's asshole. I'm joking unless you agree with me, in which case I totally mean it. Exactly. Old School says, Connor, 2 weeks ago you told me to wait a week in reference to Trump and evidence he's a pedophile. Here we sit and you have zero credible evidence of your claim. Want to modify it? Oh, you're the meme. Old School, thank you for the super chats previously, but you just did the meme. Oh, no. Let me log into my Twitter real quick. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you who you are. Oh, no. Is that not the password anymore? Shit. Oh, that's not good. What? I don't want to update my password if I can't get into my account, you douchebag. What's wrong with you? Can I still? No, come on. Hold on, guys. Give me a second. I got to show Old School this. He is already the meme. Dude, I thought my username is this. Oh, is it because of caps lock? It might be because of caps lock. And then let me try this. Okay, it was caps lock. All right, cool. Let me show you, because I've been using this a lot, Old School. God, you're funny. You're a funny guy. You might not have meant it. You might not have meant to have been funny, but I found you. I found you, the meme. I'm inside. I'm scrolling. Hold on. Let me go ahead and show you guys my Twitter so you guys can enjoy how hilarious this shit is. So here is Epstein spying on a journalist who was reporting on the Epstein, or excuse me, that's Donald Trump spying on the Epstein guy, or the Epstein journalist. Here's some wholesome dad content. Here's a photo of Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump hanging out, and we don't know what time period it is. So this photo should not be unredacted, Old School. So Old School, like, do you have any good logic for why this should be redacted? Okay, then hold on. I got to find it. Still scrolling. You're in here, buddy. You're in here. I'll find it. Well, number one, this is you. The Epstein files with all the redactions. That's it. Come on. I know it's in here. Here you go. This is you. This is you. Connor, 2 weeks ago, you told me that we need to wait a week in reference to Trump and evidence that he's a pedophile. Here we sit, and you have zero credible evidence of your claim. Want to modify it? This is you. See, guys? Trump's not in the Epstein files. And like, what did they do? So in reference to all the things that the DOJ did, so the DOJ made the word Epstein not searchable in the database. They made the word Trump not searchable in the database. They redacted entire pages when the law stated that they could only redact the identifiable information of victims. They redacted the information of powerful co-conspirators. And this is you. You come into my chat and you say this. You're funny, man. You're fucking funny. All right. Anyways, let's keep the content flowing. I can understand I'm fucking up the flow.
Sure, I agree. You should address it. You should deal with it. Yeah, but I mean, conservatives never address or deal with anything on the left either. But our political realities have gotten pretty disconnected from each other. thanks to the internet, thanks to people like Elon Musk, who's not even Jewish. Last time I checked, I don't think. Is he?
Probably not.
If he was, yeah, then I'm the
all right.
first one on the anti-Semitism train. If Elon Musk is Jewish, we got to get all these motherfuckers out of here. Okay, send them back to Hanukkah land.
Dana Cogcloud says, I popped into this because I like Commander Bobby's insights. I thought he was on Valor. He is. I feel like a misfit in this group, but it's interesting. Odd, but interesting. Dana Calicloud, I am sorry to you, okay? So effectively what's going on is Valor Media Network, especially the post-recorded content, is like men talking mindfulness, and it's dunk, and it's the new guy who I forget the new guy, but the new guy's doing a good job and he's getting good metrics. And they're talking about like wholesome things from an adult sane perspective, from a never Trump military veteran perspective. And that's like the front end, right? That's like if you go to a you go to like a restaurant, and there's the restaurant, half of the restaurant, but on the back side of the restaurant there's a bar. And we're basically the bar to Valor Media Network's restaurant. So you walk into the back of the restaurant. I'm actually thinking of a specific restaurant that I used to go to. And it's called McGregor's. It's in Mount Dora. It's so funny. The first half of it is like a wholesome, normal restaurant. And then the back half of it is this like raucous, fist fighty bar. And so we are in the raucous, fist fighty bar, where we talk about schizophrenic politics, we talk about Nick Fuentes, we talk about the dissident right, we talk about liberals infighting with each other, we talk about different media personalities fighting each other. So my apologies that you stumbled from the, not stumbled, you didn't stumble, I stumbled because we're in the bar. But you accidentally, you went to the bathroom and then you saw the bar and you're like, man, that looks kind of interesting. I'm going to go check that out. And then you walk into the bar and there's people like smashing each other with chairs and punching each other in the face and yelling about the Bible and prehistoric floods and, you know, talking about like how much influence should Israel have on the United States and this, that, the other. My apologies. My apologies to you.
Should I not have talked about Zog for as long as I did? Do you remember our debate about Zog?
I remember, yeah. I don't know how long. I don't know. Is this what did it damage your internet presence or?
No, it's far too early to tell.
Okay.
You know, it's Richard Nixon, when he was visiting China, he was talking to Chairman Mao, and they're both history buffs. And Richard Nixon asked Chairman Mao, as a way to like break the ice, what do you think of the Battle of Waterloo? And Chairman Mao says it's too early to tell. So it's too early to tell what consequences all of us will reap and what we sow.
Okay.
But I don't know. It's interesting to me because I get accused. First of all, I get accused of being controlled opposition all the time because I explicitly state my goal is to seem anti-Semitic to then discredit.
Old school. Okay, but you still have zero evidence. You cannot deny that. Yes, because the Trump administration is violating the law. Can you, are you going to deny that?
Read it from Nick Fuentes from the inside, which is meta-ironic.
Okay.
But I get, it's like, well, to say that Ben Shapiro has dual loyalty, or to say that the World Zionist Congress, the World Jewish Congress, the ADL, Chabad Ludovic, these are organized international bodies that are organized around Jewish identity. That is a real thing. So when you say, well, Jews run the world, it's like, okay, that's obviously an extreme thing. But in many ways, it's a straw man of the there's low IQ people who say that. But it's like, well, there are powerful international organizations centered around Jewish identity that, discuss what's in the interest of the Jewish community, which is, again, an entirely rational thing. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to believe this. And the problem is, even simply pointing that out.
I don't know if you're aware of this. Most people talk about this, and most people can talk about this without being labeled anti.
Zena says they made Trump not searchable, but Trump's space bar was searchable. Absolute amateur hour. Yeah, wasn't that crazy? Old school. I know I'm fighting you more than doing my Israel historical drawing right now, which means I'm a bad streamer. And this VOD is a total mess that I'm making unwatchable by streaming the way that I stream. But I think it's funny for the live crowd. You understand, like, that making the word Trump not searchable but then making Trump spacebar searchable means that they were intentionally trying to hide the amount of times that Trump was in the files, right? Fatsimo says Nick said 6 to 7 million. 6 7. Like, what? So, Fatsimo, that proves my point, though, is that he's taking something serious, which is slaughtering people for their ethno-religious characteristics, and then he's making it into a 6-7 joke. Yeah, that was crazy. All right. Anyways.
Anti-Semitic. Like generally, you screaming
so?
anti-Semitism, yes, absolutely. Generally, the people that are being labeled as anti-Semitic are people that are highly anti-Semitic. Everybody talks about AIPAC. Everybody talks about AIPAC. The idea that you can't talk about any of these things, like, yeah, Dershowitz or whatever will come out and call, but this guy's a fucking retard, calls everybody anti-Semitic. But most people have been critical of these types of things and taking money from AIPAC or supporting Israel. Like, it's a pretty common thing these days to do this. I think your issue is you're seeing people who might have legitimate criticisms about Israel, also who are deeply anti-Semitic, like Candace Owens or Nick Fuentes, who then get called anti-Semitic when they're making real criticisms, and you're like, oh, see, this is a problem. It's like, well, no, they're like, they're problematic, and that's probably why they're being so heavily associated with it. Like, you could criticize, like the ADL's been fucking criticized forever. SPLC, fucking
But particularly on the left, like Crystal Ball will call Nick Fuentes a Jew-hating Nazi and all that. It's just like,
I mean, it kind of is.
No, once again, you guys are saying like you don't like PF Young's anecdotes. I like that just fine. Now, that's because I watched the TV show Bluey, and I'm once again ruining the VOD by going on to a side tangent. So there's this episode of Bluey, okay? It's I got kids, so I watch Bluey, and Bluey's an excellent TV show. It's dog characters, and they teach family values. So there's this thing where Bluey's his dad or her dad is gonna be moving the family, and they're really sad about it, and they're losing their community, and they love their house and they love their community, so they're really sad about it. And what ends up happening is the teacher, I forget her name, but she tells a story, and it's a Chinese story, where effectively it's what Chairman Mao said, where like a old guy, finds a horse, and it's a wild horse, and he, gets it for free, and he's going to domesticate it. And everybody's like, oh, that's such good luck. And then the horse runs away, and people are like, oh, that's such bad luck. And the old guy is saying like, we'll see. And that's what he's saying the whole time. And then the wild horse brings back more wild horses for them to domesticate. And the townspeople are like, oh yeah, that's such good luck. And the old guy is like, we'll see. And then his son is riding one of the horses and breaks his leg. And then the townspeople are like, oh, that's such bad luck. And the old guy says, we'll see. And then the soldiers come to the village, and they say, we need every able-bodied male to come fight in this war. And so they take all the sons from the village away, but his son can't go because he broke his leg. And people are like, oh, wow, that's such good luck. And the old man says, we'll see. And so the whole point of what P.F. Young was saying was that Mao Zedong cheekily was saying that a battle from 200 or 300 years ago, we don't know how it's going to come out in the wash culturally, historically, economically, etc. And so we'll see. And that's actually like a pretty mature attitude when it comes to not just politics, but also your personal life as well. And so for you guys to just dismiss that and say, oh, Paul's a fucking idiot. It's like, why? That's like a perfectly coherent, sober, sane attitude to take when it comes to politics. And if you actually look at what happened with Nick Fuentes, people could have been cheering him getting kicked off of finances and him getting kicked off of mainstream social media. But what ended up happening is instead of him moderating, he became even more politically radical, and he set up a independent financial system and an independent platform system to the point that unless you murder him, you cannot cancel Nick Fuentes. And so you made your enemy more powerful. So once again, like, you should do the right thing as maximally as possible and let it come out in the wash. Ryan Nowicki says, Jon Stewart has multiple times rejected calls to run for POTUS. How do you guys see his politics for such a position? Yeah, he's too wishy-washy. Jon Stewart is genuinely a good guy, but I've seen him flip on a dime in reference to his rhetoric, so I actually don't trust him that much to be a astute political technocratic operator. Dank Brandon says the absence of evidence that we should be there on Trump is evidence of the cover-up. I mean, if they literally took a Sharpie and covered it all up, yeah. Old School says, I'm not the meme since I'm not MAGA. I'm someone who would happily see Trump sent to jail if any credible evidence were to drop, but I have integrity, so I cannot malign somebody without evidence. Okay. Like, good for you, I suppose. But when we have the world's most prolific pedophile ring covering for itself in violation of the law, I think you should at least concede that there's smoke here, even if you don't see the fire yet. Anyways, let's continue.
But Crystal Ball is also like a deeply anti-Israel, anti-ADL, anti-APAC person, though.
Right, but that's my point. Is like, okay, that's my point.
So
though.
she can do it without
not,
being anti-Semitic, and you might be calling other. But Nick Fuentes probably is anti-Semitic. So somebody calling Nick Fuentes anti-Semitic is not good evidence of anti-Semitism being overly used against non-anti-Semitic people, right?
I agree. I'm less concerned about. I mean, Nick Fuentes only matters insofar as he's representative of a broader ideological movement.
Sure, of people that are also probably anti-Semitic, right?
No, well, of course. It's like, I don't know. It's sort of like, it's like what percentage of Hassan's casual viewer base actually wants to murder billionaires and would like support it?
Probably like 30%.
Okay, what do you think of Nick's casual viewer base would want to do violence against Jews?
The way that I view neo-Nazis is, and I just haven't been in these communities for a while, but I generally don't view them as wanting to like kill Jewish people or murder them. They just want all of them out of the country, or at least all of them removed from positions of power and influence. Yeah. But
Okay,
like,
so,
if you could push a button and like, if you could ask like a groyper, if you could push a button to deport every single Jew back to Israel in the United States, I think at least 50% of them say, yeah, get them the fuck out. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Well, it also depends on the problem is because he has such wide range. I mean, I was at Thanksgiving and I asked my like 16-year-old cousins if they heard of Nick Fuentes. They're like, yeah, he's funny. And it's like, these are not kids who would know who Karl Marx is or, you know, anything about politics at all, but the Nick Fuentes clips show up. Shane Gillis is making jokes about Nick Fuentes clips appearing on his feed all the time. It's like, so, you know, the Nick Fuentes audience has expanded to an incredible amount of normie people. I would say of that proportion, the overwhelming majority are not genuinely anti-Semitic.
Sure, but I don't know how much of those people I would
don't
consider
like Israel, and they like his, you know, being an iconoclast.
For the outer ring of orbiting, like if we're expanding like rings of people that are like just aware of who Fuentes is, who've laughed at a clip of him on Instagram Reels or TikTok feeds, I don't know if I would say these people like Nick Fuentes fans, like in the same way that like I wouldn't call them like groypers, right? They're just like they've seen funny clips. Sure. I see funny clips of Nick Fuentes. He's funny shit. He's a funny guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the fucking. I'll still laugh. It was. I think your community compiles like a list of best moments at the end of the year or whatever. And there was one year where it was like, Destiny says the N-word. I like that.
Yeah.
And then it's you're gonna love it. That's funny as hell. I get okay, not fans, but of the people.
All right, at the risk of alienating CalaCloud, I'm going to risk it for the biscuit, okay? Because I don't think that I think I'll be able to find it. I don't think they actually send any terror. I don't think they actually say any slurs in this clip. But Nick Fuentes Nick Fuentes Destiny Batman meme N-word. They don't say any slurs in the clip. But this is the problem with Nick Fuentes. Okay, so let's assume that Kyle Cloud is a friend and they have no idea what we're talking about, okay? We are in online politics. There's a lot of different tribes around a bunch of different creators. One of those creators is Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is a Christian nationalist, meaning that he wants the United States effectively to be a Christian theocracy, and he likes using the Trump campaign as a vehicle to achieve his political ends. He is a critic of Trump because he doesn't think Trump is extreme or authoritarian enough. He is anti-Semitic. He does not like Jews. He does not like American Jews. He does not like Israeli Jews. He just doesn't like Jews in general. He is a race realist, meaning that he thinks that there's legitimate biological differences between the races, and that explains the outcomes of different racial groups. And so he's racist. I'm not even like pearl clutching when I say that he's racist. He's unironically racist. Now, unfortunately for all of us in online politics, he's also charismatic and funny. And so he'll come up with these like crazy stories or little bits, and they're just undeniably funny. And this is one of the things that I saw on Twitter, because Destiny is an edgy liberal debate bro. and he does say potty words. He does say racial slurs, especially in private. And so, yeah, I'm going to play this clip. Some of you will have sufficient context that you'll think it's funny. Some of you will not think this is funny at all. I don't care. I think it's funny. Let's go.
I'm sort of like going up to somebody and I'm like, you say the N-word. I like that. And Destiny's like, you're gonna love me. You're gonna love me.
Oh, what a classic. I wish my Chrome would actually load video properly.
The proportion of people who
The
are
too
modern
soon thing for Piers was funny.
yeah,
When Piers, yeah. But
Well,
that,
and Piers
do you
Morgan,
think,
oh my god, dude.
but that
Talk
was
about
largely a
sheer
good,
incompetence.
well, you might perceive it that way, but that was largely a bad appearance for Nick, I would say. Like, it played really well with his audience and his fans and younger people, but for older people, they probably saw that as like, wow, this guy's like problematic and crazy, not good.
Agreed. Also, I mean, it cost him in ways that even undermine him. I think even undermine his theoretically one of his long-term goals. Again, I'm not concerned about the boomers at this point because I'm interested in 10 years from now or more.
Sure.
I do think that interview with Piers Morgan, he basically, because like I said, you saw that clip of Cenk talking to Hassan saying, like, it's not unreasonable to try and want to do coalition with Nick Fuentes. I mean, I don't know if his exact words.
Maybe, but
he was
Cenk and Hassan, I view, they're both morally bankrupt, intellectually bankrupt.
That's fine.
Who are also both insanely anti-Semitic, more so than Fuentes. So I hate both of these people. I generally am racist against
You think
Turkish people
Hassan?
in general. I think Turkish people have the worst dual loyalty in the entire, more than Israel's. If you packaged Israelis and Turkish people together, innovator game. Go ahead.
I officially condemn.
God.
I condemn hate speech.
Okay.
That was
Point is-
spicy, Steven.
Regardless of what you think of them, they do have large audiences. And so the prospect that a left-right populist coalition could form was there, is still there. But when Nick Fuentes goes on, Piers Morgan says Hitler was really fucking cool. I'm tired of pretending he's not. Black people should be locked up for the most part. That's hilarious. You know, that's based and all that. It's like he said himself, maybe us on the right, in order to compromise with the left, needs to give up the anti-white and sentiment and the open border stuff, and on the right we need to give up like the cruelty and abuse. It's like, okay, well, okay, seems reasonable. Then you go on Piers Morgan and you say, you engage in the performative cruelty that he was condemning. So, my mom died in the Holocaust and all that. It's like, so he just undermined himself there. So he's chosen to basically be a one-dimensional, I'm an iconoclast. My only goal is to push back against this whole Holocaust as a religion thing.
Sure.
Which, and I think a lot of people can respect that and appreciate that. I'm sick and tired of Israel invoking the Holocaust to justify ethnic cleansing in Gaza. It's like it's a joke. And people are far more pissed off and concerned with Benjamin Netanyahu than they are with Nick Fuentes. And it's sort of like,
I will say though, just as a thing, one, that's not necessarily their geopolitical justification for it. I understand you're saying that like this is the public facing thing they put up, but like this isn't unique to Jews or Israel, right? Doesn't everybody kind of do this? Like black people talk about slavery, women talk about indentured servitude in the household and lack of voting, and everybody has their struggle, their grind,
it's typical woke tactics.
Sure.
That's why Douglas Murray, James Lindsay, and the pro-Israel right are the true woke right, which we talked about last time. We don't have to talk about now.
Sure. But I mean, nobody's a bigger victim than Trump. Every time he gets up and speaks, he talks about how Biden victimized him, his FBI victimized him, everybody victimized him. The deep.
The speech he gave.
Everybody likes to be a victim because it gives them unlimited actions that they can do with no accountability.
Yeah, he's a whiny.
Somebody's done worse. Yeah.
Yes, he's a whiny bitch, and that speech he gave a couple days ago was just him shitting on. It's like pathetic. But I do think one of the things that gives Nick powers is the fact that people like they like the iconoclasm. Which when you went on, like for example, when you went on Piers Morgan and they asked you to condemn the Trump shooter, you were like, in front of these people, no, fuck you guys. Now, many people would say, well, that means you truly hate Donald Trump and conservatives, which I will not speculate on your motives. But the point is, there were many people who I actually don't think want to see conservatives killed, who respected what you did because you were saying, look, fuck your frame. I'm not buying into I'm not buying into the frame of my hypocritical political opponents like Dave Rubin, who celebrated Paul Pelosi's head getting bashed in. I'm not going to sit here and condemn violence in front of these people. I think that's what Nick Fuentes is doing just with the post-war consensus type stuff. It's like, look, I'm just not going to sit here. That's why he said I'm going to own the term racist and all that.
Sure.
And, you know, the Holocaust is not my religion and all that stuff. And so I think a lot of people respect that. And my point is there are valid reasons to respect that. Like I said, Israel invokes the Holocaust. Like, it's not unique to Israel that they're doing these things. What's unique is the degree to which, you know, anti-Semitism is considered the ultimate sin, even more so than just racism against black people. That's why they always talk about racism and anti-Semitism as if they're two separate things. And
I mean, anti-Semitism is unique, but like I think we have more sensitivities to black people than Jewish people in the U.S., right? Like DEI wasn't about Jewish people. BIPOC wasn't created for Jewish people. The rewriting of American history wasn't about Jewish people. Like all of this stuff was is about like black people, and affirmative action wasn't about Jewish people. Like all these big court cases, all the big DEI and woke and SJW stuff, basically all of it was centered around like black people and black issues, not Jewish people.
Sure, but I think you can totally be a mainstream Republican and criticize black culture or Muslims. But if you criticize Jewish people, there's a sudden, that's now out of the mainstream. I mean, Ben Shapiro hired Candace Owens for the basically.
Well, yeah, but I think it's just, you got to be careful with what we're talking about there, right? Because when conservatives, if I look a little, let's say I buy the dog whistle, when conservatives are
I also, this is something that I don't understand about PF Jung's perspective. Maybe it's because I'm philo-Semitic, so I get a pass because I like the Jews or whatever. But it seems particularly after October 7th, 2023, that you can be critical of Jewish people without paying much of a social consequence. And that's one of the things that I think is weird is that, you know, PF Jung keeps saying like, oh, if you're anti-Zionist, then you get canceled as anti-Semitic. If you're, you know, anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic, then you get canceled. If you're a Nazi, you get debanked or deplatformed. And this violates my perspectives on freedom of conscience and freedom of speech. And so as a result, I just don't know if this is true anymore. Well, like I feel like Myron Gaines, Sneeko, Nick Fuentes, and then the people who platform them, like PBD and that guy who's a cuckold from the hip hop scene, like 22 Jump Street or whatever that guy's name is, Adam 22. What's happening is normie conservative alt media figures, even though they're not really normie, they're actually quite extreme. But normie alt media figures who are on YouTube are willing to platform schizo right-wing anti-Semites because it's a spicy topic. And so it gets them high ratings. So they're willing to do it. And so the philo-Semites or the Israel apologists, they will like give tepid pushback to the anti-Semites, but they know that they're making a spicy show. But that's not the same as like cancellation, right? So I don't know if I agree that we are definitely not in the same place that we were before October 7, 2023. We're definitely not in the same place that we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. This was a sacred cow, but I don't think it's as sacred as it once was. Reading a few super chats because I parasocially love you and I like hanging out with you. Officer Nasty says, every day that Rick and Morty clip about Israel gets funnier. I don't know which one, but I'm sure it is awesome. Todd Sullivan says, is Connor making the river to the sea meme? No, I'm drawing ancient Israel and Judah. I'm doing a chronological timeline of what has happened in the region. And then, this is Cope. What the F are you making, Connor? I'm making maps of Israel throughout history. Moncho says only because of how far Israel was going in reference. I'm assuming in reference to Gaza, says Moncho. Beef Supreme says, unfortunately, I agree with PF and not Connor on this point. I don't see what you see. It's radically changed since October 7th. I think it's radically changed. Morally Neutral is saying it wasn't even true before. I think it was true. I feel like Israel was, relatively speaking, a sacred cow from the 90s to the 2010s. Reason being is because we had the World War II generation that was still alive. And if you criticized Israel or criticized Jewish people, then they were like, Holocaust, World War II, Hitler bad, shut your mouth or I'll slap you. So, Doobie says, Valor, this is Cope again. Post October 7th, we have laws being pushed all over the country that equate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. Sure. Did any of those laws get passed? Because number one, did any of those laws get passed? Number two, aren't they all anti-constitutional? Wouldn't they be struck down the second that they get passed? Doobie says, Charlie Kirk was called anti-Semitic for having Tucker on stage. Tucker is called dangerous anti-Semite. You're nuts. Well, Tucker Carlson's a useful fucking idiot for dog shit people. So this is where I feel like you guys are borderline childish, where you think that Tucker Carlson is like this genuine, good faith, curious person. And I see him as a useful tool for shitty regimes. Morally Neutral says, not for basic critique, maybe for some way out there shit, but not normal criticism. Yeah. Like if you have normal geopolitical criticism, nobody really gives a shit. It's just like, I don't think the state of Israel should exist. Yeah, people are going to call you an anti-Semite. Vance versus Newsom. I don't know, man. Vance seems like pretty evil, dude. Beef Supreme says, yeah, their term anti-Semitism is still largely overused and means nothing anymore. I've seen good people asking good questions be labeled anti-Semitic. Yeah, but if it's not working anymore, that's my point. How do you get dangerous anti-Semite from Schill? Because he goes right up to the Jewish question, and then he backs off at the last second. That's what happened in the Nick Fuentes interview. He was like, I agree with all of your criticisms of Jews and the state of Israel, but I don't think individual Jews are evil, which I guess is like a decent moral caveat if you earnestly believe it. But I don't even think he earnestly believes it. Patriarch says, Connor, stop responding to Doobie until he super chats. And then somebody said, coward. I don't even know what you guys are saying. All right, that's fine. Anyways, we're at 5 out of 10 on the goal. We got 45 minutes left. You guys have already hit 10 super chats in general, and the Oilers oiled today. Shout out to Old School, even though he made me angry. Big Leafy Tree, Real Serious, Grassroots Hegemon with multiple super chats, Christian Valeris with a huge $300 super chat, Michael H with the $1.49 super sticker, Fell Runner with the 5, and Grassroots with the 5 gifted Valor Media Network memberships. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I could not do this show without you. I want to keep drawing, though. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. And that didn't work. All right, but I'm going to keep drawing.
Influencing, or when they're criticizing Black culture, they're not criticizing Black people. They're criticizing thug culture and gangsters and single-parent households and murder, right? So to say you're criticizing Jewish culture, that's a weird...
Well, I'm sure Nick Fuentes would say he's not criticizing Jewish people. He's criticizing, the degree to which they organize it.
Sure, you can, but like, man, you've almost destroyed any legitimate argument you can salvage here because you're traveling with so much bad company here.
Well, you see, John says, am I only going to 1? No, I'm going to 2:30. I just, the goal, we only have 45 minutes. So the goal is super chats, $2 or higher, 10 super chats over the course of 2 hours. We're at 5 out of 10.
With all of your other claims, right? Like I agree.
It's
almost going to be impossible. And when almost every single one of these people seems to be doing that, it seems
Zenith summarizes it accurately. Connor's argument was that if Newsom started collaborating with Hassan Piker, he'd tolerate a neoconservative Vance, not that he'd tolerate today's Vance over today's Newsom. True.
Like you're running into like a pattern that I think a lot of people pick up on, and then it becomes very, very hard to push back against said pattern because so many of the people are traveling with bad companions here.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. There's nothing that undermines your own ideological interests than the freaks on your own cause.
No, when I say, I'm sorry, that's why I said their own people. They're travelers, they're bad companions of their own beliefs. If I come out and I want to be critical of mRNA vaccines,
the freakish beliefs,
and I'm also like a super vegan, I'm also like a super like meat only diet or whatever. I have all these other crazy beliefs. the mRNA criticisms are going to get tossed to the wind, maybe even rightfully so, because I have so many other crazy beliefs. So when all of your anti-Israel people or heavily critical against Israeli or Jewish interests in the United States people are also all seemingly anti-Semitic and are saying that Churchill was the bad guy in World War II and that the Holocaust numbers are probably an order of magnitude higher than they actually are. And it's like, okay, well, fuck, like, do we take any of this seriously? You know, like,
exactly.
At that point, they've sunk themselves. Sure.
Yeah, this is my point, is that I think if Nick chose to, he could actually, start building or at least laying the groundwork for coalitions between the right and left. But he instead chose to say, no, I'm racist. I don't give a fuck. And I'm here I never apologize. I'm never going to buy into my enemy's frame. So fuck it. And I will never concede.
Well, I think
even if those concessions
I would like
to
separate out some things. I think and I actually prefer, first of all, let me just express a huge annoyance. Just put a pin in this conversation where we're at right now. Okay, I hate all of the meta conversation about rhetoric and shit, and that we can't have conversation around any substance anymore. It's all about like, how do you frame the? That's just so annoys me so much. This isn't your fault, but it's just that's what this conversation is. I will say on a substance level, I would prefer somebody like Fuentes to say, I am racist. Let's talk about crime, because we would have a better conversation about crime than conservatives claiming they're not racist, and then left-leaning people who are too afraid to do any talk about crime enforcement and don't want to be, and it's just fucking retarded. So,
Drew, I hate to be a Destiny simp in this perspective. I don't care if you're racist. Okay, I don't care if you're racist. I don't care if you're anti-Semitic. I don't care if you're sexist. I don't care if you're this. I don't care if you're that. I care about talking about the interesting ideas in reference to what is real, where do we want to go, how do we get there? That's the most interesting conversation. Okay, that I genuinely, Nick Fuentes could be the most virulent anti-Semitic, pro-Nazi, pro-Hitler douchebag on the planet, but as long as he's involved in the zeitgeist, I don't want to constantly morally frog that he's a bad guy. What is real is real. Israel. Nice, real serious. But the point is like, okay, he's a part of the zeitgeist. What am I going to do about that? Well, we need to have a conversation about what is descriptive reality, where do we want to go, and what's the prescriptions to get there. That's the infinitely more interesting conversation than just talking endlessly about whether or not your opponent is a bad person. That's me, though.
If Nick wants to own
I agree.
I'm racist, like that's the thing that I can do this with every left-leaning person I talk about. It's the first question we talk about crimes. Like, why do you think more black people are in prison per capita than white people? And you'll get 25 different answers before you can get them to admit it's because they commit more crime per capita. If we don't understand that, then we're lost, right? That's fine, but that's of a different nature. It's a fundamentally different thing than like the anti-Semitism, than the clean break memo or whatever is why we went to war with Iraq and Libya and everything else, and why 9/11 happened and the dancing Israelis were there, and why the USS Liberty was attacked. These are fundamentally different types of things.
Exactly. You're engaging. Yes, you're taking the enlightened centrist position between, yes, we can acknowledge straight up that black people commit more crime. That does not, we're not going to get into like IQ genetics. There's a clear, reasonable middle ground. Okay, all I'm saying is we need to carve out that middle ground with, like, when it comes to anti-Semitism. It's like Ben Shapiro seems to have dual loyalty to Israel. Yes, look, here's the clip. Here's Larry Ellison. Here's Miriam Adelson. I mean, the clips of Donald Trump talking about Miriam Adelson, who's the second biggest donor besides Elon Musk, saying, I asked Miriam if she loves Israel or the U.S. more, and she didn't answer. I'm going to guess that means she loves Israel. That's a direct quote from Donald Trump. So it's like, yes, all that's true. This does not mean that therefore all Jews are suspect, or that it's, somehow like completely, it's somehow unreasonable for people to care more about Israel and the United States. But there's a reasonable middle ground of, okay, but that means we can critique and say, actually, yeah, it's perfectly reasonable to say it's not in U.S. interests for Larry Ellison to be dictating the TikTok algorithm when he's explicitly stated, I'm going to,
well,
support
maybe.
Israel.
If he's a U.S. citizen and he's got U.S. money and that's what he decides to support, I mean, that's on him to do it.
But
right?
if you had a Russian dual citizen who was the second biggest donor to Donald Trump and influencing the media in a way that biased coverage in favor of Russia, like, is it not understandable that would represent a conflict of interest?
I prefer that to the covert shit that they do now.
Okay, weirdly enough, I actually don't agree with Stephen here, and this is a point that P.F. Jung brought up, where we obviously differentiate between our enemies and our friends. And so Israel is not a perfect friend. Obviously, we have our beefs in the 50s and 60s over them getting nukes. We have the USS Liberty incident. We have allegedly Gold in My Ear saying that if they lose, it was either the 67 or 73 war, but if they actually lose the war, they might have to use nukes, tactical nukes against their enemies. And then therefore the United States went and backed them militarily. That way Israel didn't collapse. We have the war in Lebanon, in which we backed them up in order for them to withdraw from Lebanon under cover from the 7th Fleet. That was one of the arguments that Osama bin Laden used in order to justify the 9/11 terror attacks. There's a whole host of reasons why Israel is not the perfect friend, but we don't expect perfection out of our friends. And it's pretty clear that if we look at our collaborations in reference to military industrial technology, in reference to Iran, in reference to military intelligence sharing, in reference to military industrial complex technology, I might have repeated myself, but the point is that they're infinitely more our friends than Russia. Russia does not want to bend the knee to liberal hegemonic American empire. And so as a result, Russia is at minimum a rival and at maximum is an enemy. And so treating our allies and enemies differently, of course, makes sense.
I would say that it would be problematic. I would say that it would be problematic because I would, well, like for all of the covert stuff that Russia does to try to influence our election. Yeah.
Okay.
The issue that I have with that comparison, the intuition that you're hinting at here is because Russia is very clearly opposed to U.S. interests. Israel is still in a weird middle ground where even if we say they do some things that might be opposite U.S. interests with relation to the war in Gaza, we very clearly favor the Israeli, Saudi Arabian access to the now just the Iranian one. Like that's still like a very clear favoring of most Americans ideologically, whether they know it or not, and definitely most of the American political establishment. Now, if that changes, then maybe that would change in the future, but that's still something that's going to be true. So somebody that has like Israeli interested in an American who's Israeli interested, well, most Americans are going to be Israeli interested, even if they're not Israeli or Jewish, just by virtue of that conflict right there. Not to say that can't change in the future, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, again, and the geopolitical debate is one thing, but again, my point is it is indisputable that there are people who are saying criticism of Israel is a form of Jewish. So, again, Sebastian Gorka, like, you know, in Trump circles.
Yeah, there are some people that say that they're losers. Fuck them, but they don't prevent any of the conversation.
It's not just they're losers. These are powerful people who have the capacity to do exactly what they're saying, which is we're going to institute technological and policy interventions to address anti-Semitism, and then they lump criticism of Israel under anti-Semitism.
Yes, and
that's
I agree
the problem
that
at hand.
But the problem is the fact that they even have the tool to do that, and the problem is MAGA. That's the issue there. And it's
fine. Okay.
It's like it's like a group
That's
of.
why, look, Trump is the most zogged out candidate of all time. Okay.
It's no. I wish if he was zogged out, it would be even better than whatever the fuck we have right now. He's just narcissisted out, and he's a retard. That's the issue. But it's like you have an issue with like Austria, or they're making Glocks that are that a whole bunch of like stormtroopers are now like we're going to go and kill Americans with Glocks, and you know. The Glock manufacturer is like, yes, like this is good. We also want to kill Americans. Like, well, the problem isn't the Glocks. The problem is the stormtroop people that are running around killing Americans. They might be using Glocks, but like they could use any other gun. You know, if you want to say that some Jewish people have too much power over media or whatever else, they've been granted this power via MAGA. And the issue is that MAGA even has the ability to dole this out, or that they have so much widespread support. And I don't think that widespread support is necessarily granted by Israel. Although if you want to make that argument, then we have to take a step further back, go there. But yeah, I mean, whatever.
I'm not sure
problem,
I followed that, but I don't think I disagree.
As in the issues that we have right now. So there's a lot of like weird shit that on the surface is like pro-Israel in a negative way. So like the deportations for students that were protesting for Gaza, or making your visas or your student visas contingent upon what seemed to basically be your support for Israel, I think is really weird and stupid and bad. The obsession with anti-Semitism around the college stuff. I don't know. Did they pass a bill in the House, like a House resolution condemning anti-Semitism, retarded shit like this? Like, I think these are bad and stupid things, but I don't view these as like Jewish people enforcing their power. I view this as MAGA and Donald Trump using Jews as like a useful tool to further their own agenda. And I think that agenda is really bad.
Okay. I mean, sure. I guess I care about the effect, whether it's one framing or the other. If the effect is certain things cannot be said because they get labeled as anti-Semitic when they are objectively true. Like, hey, it seems like Ben Shapiro, owner and or you know, a major stakeholder and operator of one of the largest conservative media companies seems to have more loyalty to Israel than the United States. If you can't say that, or that falls under, well, this is the kind of stuff that's anti-Semitic because it feeds.
Sure, we
into
can say that, and we can say that, and that might be problematic. I think it's okay to say that. I think that we can even say that's problematic. However problematic that is, Elon Musk, his acquisition of X and his relationship with Donald Trump is 100 times more problematic. Elon Musk has destroyed X as a platform. Like, I'm so close. I'm still have to sit down and think about it this year to finally start telling my audience I'm killing my account on this. I don't think any of you should engage in this platform because it's so bought in.
That same
it's
advice.
so
fucked. It's gross.
Yeah, but this was like a $44 billion purchase to further the interests of just one man, of the president of the United States, by the arguably the richest man in the world, who controls what SpaceX, that we use for satellites and space related stuff, who controls Tesla, who is arguably on his way to becoming the world's first trillionaire. Like, this is so much more like Jewish people look at Elon Musk and they wish that they were this greedy and long-nosed and influential, and they're not, right? And this guy can't even keep it together. This guy's fucking ketted out of his fucking mind, like through no political savvy of his own. He gets Doge. Bro, if there was like a fucking Doge, some Jewish organization going through the government with the level of access that Elon Musk have, the Jew alumni, bro, Jewish people would fucking dream of this level of access, that they could audit the prior ownership of Twitter's files like Elon Musk let Barry Weiss and Schellenberger and all these hack fuck losers do. Like, these are problems. I agree with this, like the Jew thing. And I think it's cringe that some people retreat to the anti-Semitism thing. I think that is cringe. But my God, MAGA is so much more fucking protected by the whole media establishment right now.
There's 3 more chapters I want to check out. I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting a little tapped out on this. I'm gonna keep drawing Israel and the history of stuff, but there's 3 chapters I want to check out. Liberalism has failed. Traditional morality is necessary. Do we need a dictator? And then maybe the true enemy is nihilism. So I'm going to fast forward to those chapters because realistically, like, we kind of get it, right? At least I think I get it. There is bad faith and good faith concern about Israel and Jewish influence in the United States of America. What I would say the bad faith or bad anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is, it's all a deliberate conspiracy. The Holocaust numbers are exaggerated. World War II is exaggerated. So we have a bunch of sympathy for Jewish people. Jewish people through the diaspora have spread out across the world, but specifically into the United States. And the establishment of the state of Israel is actually a moral wrong that should be rectified historically by an abolishment of the state of Israel. And we should either denaturalize and deport Jewish people from the United States back to the state of Israel. That way our affairs are no longer commingled, or the state of Israel should be wiped off of the face of the earth. And then Jews in the United States should be dispossessed of power because they have disproportionate power in the United States. That I would view as the legitimately like anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist perspective that Christian nationalists like Nick Fuentes have. When it comes to like the good faith stuff, I think it more comes from like a root of American patriotism, where you think that the United States is the greatest country on the planet, that liberalism or maximal human freedom is a good thing, that as long as we wake up, we work our jobs, we pay our bills, we take care of our family, maybe we pay our taxes, and we leave each other alone, that's a good thing. And being Jewish should just be another random ethno-religious identity within the United States, treated no better or no worse than any other. And so the hostility to Zionist supremacy or Jewish supremacy comes from a place of egalitarianism, not out of hatred. And I think that's a weird perspective, but I mean, it's possible. It's logically consistent. As a matter of fact, as much as Doobie kind of flirts with some dissident ideas, Doobie, weirdly enough, I think that his criticisms are at least rooted in that ideology. So Huckno says sorry, let me take a look at this. Huckno says at the end, PF asked Destiny why people see him as right wing. That's worth seeing too. Well, then we might as well watch the entire thing, and then the entire day is just the PF Jung versus Destiny show. I mean, I have no problems with that. We just might need to break it up into 2 segments in reference to a VOD. But yeah, yep. Bud123 says France aided Israel in the 1950s to get nuclear weapons. Yeah, but France is kind of like an equal opportunity person in reference to the Middle East and North Africa. They also helped out like Algeria and Nigeria and Iraq and Iran at different times throughout the 20th century. mostly because they probably wanted to screw with the British and American interest in the region. But anyways, I'm going to let the content flow. I'm going to keep drawing. I am interested in these next chapters. So we're at least going to get through these next chapters. I hate to say it. It might be easier just because we've already been going for 2.5 hours. It might be easier just to make this the Destiny versus PF Young day. I know that's a lot of Destiny and a lot of PF Young, but I think we kind of have to do it because I'm still interested in these chapters. And then people are saying that I should check out these other chapters. So actually, quick question. Should we wrap it and check out the Nick Fuentes content for the sake of variety, or should we keep going with this content because I like both of these creators and they're about to talk about something new? We could mix it up and do Fuentes, or we could just keep going and knock this out. So what does chat feel about it? Doobie says, my criticism of Israel itself is from an American idealistic perspective. My criticism of the pro-Israel lobby in the U.S. is from a nationalist perspective. Other guys says, I'm fine with Destiny. You're the content man. Be happy. Which Nick content? Okay, let's keep going. I see a few Oilers and a few Chippers saying keep going. Let's keep going.
Liberalism. It's failed, Destiny.
Has it, though?
According to Patrick Deneen,
Oh, shit.
professor
I don't know
at
if
University of
Patrick
Notre
said
Dame.
it. Okay.
We read a book for our book club.
Yeah.
That Obama said was a phenomenal book called
Okay.
Why Liberalism Failed.
Okay.
And basically the gist of it is, if you don't have any other moral principles other than let's maximize individual, I'm referring to social liberalism, not necessarily like 3 branches of government, power distribution.
Yeah, no.
Well,
Yeah, I
okay,
know.
social liberalism. If your moral principle is maximize individual autonomy, you don't have a leg to stand on to go after certain things. So I'll go with the extreme example. Because Richard
Anti-Semitism. Oh, sorry. Just kidding.
right.
Okay.
Because Richard Hanania defended this.
My king.
We can use YouTube-friendly language. AI CSAM.
Based. Okay. Not based. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. My bad. Go ahead.
Oh my God. Fucking kill me, man. Dude, listen, this is where this is what pisses me off about. I agree with PF Young here, okay? Listen, guys, sometimes instinctively things can be wrong. And even if you can't articulate the harm to other people, if you can even vaguely point to harm at the individual level, it shouldn't be done. Okay? So I think what PF Young is about to say is, let's say that there was AI CSAM that was generated in reference to, and there was like no victims. There was no victims. Like you could generate CSAM without hurting anyone. Should individuals be able to consume that without like judgment from, is Destiny doing Schrodinger's asshole thing when he says based about AI CSAM? No idea. I don't think Steven's into kids, but let's. It's annoying at the least. That's what I can say. But I want to show you something. It's a concept that I brought up that a lot of people have given me shit for. Neuroplasticity. Okay. So neuroplasticity is the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life, allowing it to adapt, learn, and recover from injury or disease by changing its structure and function in response to experiences and environmental demands. It's how we learn new skills like playing an instrument or driving, form habits, and how the brain compensates after damage from a stroke or trauma. So the old belief about neuroplasticity or the brain was that your brain is unable to regenerate, because I think it actually does have a lot of inability to generate. And so it's different from the other vital organs, where the other vital organs you can just regrow shit, whereas with the brain it's like more difficult. But what your brain can do is it can create new neural connections throughout life. And so that's why if you're an old dog, you can learn new tricks. Like if I dedicated enough of my brain power, I might not want to, but I could learn the piano, or I could play the recorder, or I could play the drums, or I could learn a new language. Now, is it going to be the same as learning it as a child? Absolutely not. But can I reorganize my brain in such a way that I create new neural connections? And the truth is, you can do this all the way up until death. You could do this even when you have Alzheimer's. You can create new neural connections because your brain will try to use what is healthy tissue in order to create those connections. So the point is that having these neural connections is there's an element of willpower in it, regardless of whether or not you believe in choice. You can use your willpower to learn new things and then change the shape and structure of your brain. And so, if you are going to use part of your brain power in order to consume victimless CSAM, the argument from some liberals is going to be that, like, oh, well, you didn't hurt anybody else, therefore you could do that and nobody should care and nobody should judge you one way or the other. My point is that you are hurting yourself. You are fucking up your brain. You are making it more likely for you to find that kind of stuff attractive. You are making it more likely that you are going to engage with that content in the future. You're making it more likely that you could be abusive to a child in the future. And therefore, there is not a victimless crime. So, yeah, Newman says, didn't Stephen try to defend rehabilitative CSAM some years ago for recovering pedophiles in the prison system? I feel like he backed off of it now, but I'm curious if he'd still think it's possible again with AI. Newman his argument was a utilitarian analysis where he was saying, let's say there was like decades old CSAM or something like that, and they found out that if they provided that to pedophiles, they were less likely to commit actual acts of sex abuse. And you could measure this thing. And so society, from a utilitarian perspective, while you're engaged in like a moral horror, from a utilitarian perspective, you would actually reduce the amount of children who were abused. That was like the hypothetical that he was playing with. And for me, it's like, well, could we achieve the same thing? And maybe this is vindictive and conservative of me, but could we achieve the same thing with chemical castration? Right? Because in one of those scenarios, you're providing people the thing that makes their brain worse through neuroplasticity. In another one, you basically remove their impulse to have any kind of sexual impulse whatsoever through chemical castration. So that's where, for me, rather than providing pedophiles CSAM material in appealing to some utilitarian calculus, I would just be like, hey, guess what? If you're a committing pedophile, then you get chemically castrated, or we euthanize you. That's another option. So don't do it. But anyways, let's continue.
Right. So the argument is, so people were defending this online, saying, well, someone said a court had ruled that AI CSAM is okay. Someone quote tweeted it, and Richard Hanani was peripherally involved with this. What on earth is wrong with this? The whole reason we're against CSAM is because it hurts the children. It exploits the children. But in this case, no one is being exploited, which I think is deranged and demented.
Yes.
What is the, well, first off, do you think, maybe I should have asked this beforehand. I don't know. Do you think AI CSAM should be illegal?
That's a really hard one. There are certain laws that I actually find really difficult to justify, like logically, like formal logically justification from like philosophy to law. When you look at the other behavior that exists in society. So the two things that I have the biggest problem with are like animal cruelty laws and child laws. So for instance, I think it's very interesting to say that like it's illegal to abuse your dog, but you can eat food that comes from factory farming. Much the same that it's interesting that it's illegal to look at child, but you can go on watchpeopledie.tv and watch endless videos of people being literally torture murdered and executed.
The reason why I find this so stupid is because we have different categories for different kinds of behavior. And so as an example, let's use the food example. A pet is not the same as a factory farmed animal. And if anything, we should be enhancing the well-being of factory farmed animals. So a pet serves a different purpose. It's effectively a creature that you rely on and use for like emotional fulfillment. right? That's what a pet is. And so dogs, I think everybody knows, and cats to a degree, have pretty rich emotional lives, even if they don't share the same level of sapience as human beings do. So to take a creature like that, who is having a conscious experience, and then torturing them on purpose for your own sick pleasure, that's not the same as the utility of eating. Most animals are omnivorous or carnivorous. And then on top of that, it seems like nature has no problems with being omnivorous or carnivorous. And then the utility is eating, and eating food is something that's necessary to propagate human life. So justifying recreational cruelty to a pet through the cruelty of industrial food, I think is nonsensical. I think it's actually wildly stupid. And then the same thing with like, oh, well, I can engage with endless amounts of violence, but I can't engage with CSAM material, therefore whatever. It's like, okay, go fuck yourself. Like, obviously, when it comes to violence, there's useful violence, and you can even engage with horrific violence in a useful way. As an example, when it comes to live leak materials and all that kind of stuff, the execution films are horrifying. But the moral lesson that you should be learning from the execution videos, if you engage with gore material, is that there's monsters out there and they will do fucked up shit to you. And that gore material existing in a public space actually assists law enforcement and assists counter-terror operations, because they're able to track down people from those films and then either incarcerate or kill them. So that's where this, engaging with gore is not the same as engaging with CSAM. And so when it comes to CSAM, there is no higher utility. There is no moral lesson to be learned. There is no, and the only reason why this should exist in any public space whatsoever is it should be taken down from the public space almost immediately, but law enforcement should get it so they can find the criminals and hold them accountable for their behavior. So there's no deeper lesson to be learned from CSAM. So that's where, fuck these analogies. I think these analogies are terrible.
If I were to venture a guess, why intuitively does one feel so much wronger than the other? It's probably because when you are, if you're abusing an animal, or if you're engaging in watching child pornography, there is a sense of enjoyment that no decent human being should be getting out of it. When somebody eats a cheeseburger, they're not enjoying the suffering of the animal, they're enjoying a cheeseburger. When somebody abuses a dog, they must be a sociopath. Much the same, maybe there's a morbid curiosity or weirdness around watching people getting killed or murdered, although a lot of people, more people than I think many people would have an intuition, would probably be okay with like making that illegal to watch. But for enjoying child, there is no curious enjoyment there. You just must be a sociopath to enjoy that. So I feel like that's why these laws are justified. But I guess like you're going to go on to make the point from like a broad liberal perspective, it's hard to like build out a philosophical argument there that would match our intuitions, such that like liberalism has arguably failed here to supply us an answer that satisfies our intuitive ethical feelings.
Well, the argument is, if you can prove, because some people say that, well, animals are moral zombies. I think I've heard even Steve say this, which is fucking stupid to me. So there's sentience and there's sapience, okay? And we use these terms interchangeably, and I'm actually going to Google them right now just so we can know what they mean. Sentient definition: able to perceive or feel things. Well, we know like a mollusk is able to perceive. Plants are able to perceive. Like they have the experience that, like, plants have stress hormones. So we know something as simple or complex, arguably, as a plant has a degree of sentience. Horses United Second says, is this live? Yes, this is live. And then we also know like a mollusk is sentience. And then we grade sentience on its complexity. But sapience, which was a word that I originally hated. No, the other guy says, no, it's not live. Oh, are you talking about P.F. Jung's conversation? No, P.F. Jung's conversation is a few days old. But I'm live. Wait, you said it's dead? What are you talking about? My internet connection is good. Stop screwing with me. Sapience means profound wisdom, understanding, and sound judgment, representing the ability to use knowledge, experience, and insight to make good decisions, often involving self-awareness and deep comprehension beyond mere intelligence. And so that's where we try to differentiate sapience and human beings. We're literally called Homo sapiens, right? So we try to differentiate the conscious experience of humans as being more advanced than other living creatures. But that's not true. Arguably, pigs, arguably, dolphins, arguably, octopi, arguably, a whole host of species. Oh, including like chimpanzees and orangutans. Chimpanzees and orangutans have measurable IQ. Now it's on the low end. I think they have like 75 IQ. They have like 80 IQ, but they still have reasoning skills that are far beyond what people who want to treat them as moral zombies would believe that they had. And so my argument, I'm still a carnist. I still eat meat, but my argument would be that like a cow, number one, I would ban eating infants. I would ban eating infants instantaneously. Veal would no longer exist unless it was grown in a vat. That's done. Eating other creatures' infants is fucked, right? Octopi would probably vote Democrat. Let's be real. Orangutans would probably vote Republican. But anyways. Sorry. Chat's hitting me with some memes. The point is that these creatures, like a cow, in my opinion, should have a pretty good life up until it reaches maturity. Like, let's say a cow lifespan to maturity. They're sexually mature around 2 years old, though they can live 15 to 20 years. So if I was to set a law by myself, I would say cows have to be a minimum of 3 years old before slaughter. Okay? Because they're physically and sexually mature at 2 years old. And they're probably, after 6 months to a year of walking around and eating grass or whatever, you got the cow experience. Okay? Congratulations. You're walking around eating grass. That's it, right? And so as a result, then they also need to do a humane slaughtering process. And there's this thing, I understand there's a few vegans in chat who freak out whenever I bring it up, but it's like, it's in the Netherlands, I think, but Dutch CO2 gas for pigs. In the Netherlands, carbon dioxide gas stunning has been a common method for pigs, but it's highly controversial due to significant animal welfare concerns. The method causes pain, panic, respiratory distress in pigs before they lose consciousness. So what's interesting about the CO2 stunning is that there's at least one factory farm. Yeah, new stunning method reduces pig suffering, eyes on animals. CO2 gas stunning is so that the use of CO2 can be phased out. So whatever this is, but the point is that this is better than like physical stunning, okay? And there was actually pigs. Hold on, let's read this real quick. Vlees, the Dutch magazine for professionals working in the food and restaurant industry, published an article on how Eyes on Animals redesigned a large pig slaughterhouse to make high throughput automatic electric stunning much more humane and to provide a realistic alternative to the painful CO2 gas stunning option so that the use of CO2 gas stunning can be phased out. So anyways, the point is that like stunning and slaughtering an animal should be humanized as much to the maximum degree possible. That's the main thrust of my point. Doobie7437 says $10. If you think they're not moral zombies, how do you justify supporting the industrial rape and slaughter of animals when you have other food options readily available? Because I think we should improve it over time. It's the same thing as like slavery. Like we might not have had the capacity 300 or 400 years ago to use industrial machinery in order to abolish our consumption of sugarcane. But obviously we should have pushed, people back then should have pushed for improved conditions for slaves in the Caribbean and North America. And then as soon as industrial machinery was available for agricultural production, slavery should have been abolished. So yeah, that's how I justify it. I'm an omnivore. Tough shit. Tough shit, animals. You're at the bottom of the food chain. Matter of fact, you guys have inspired. I'm going to ruin the VOD. Okay? I'm going to ruin the VOD again. Pillow talk, Lil Dicky. But you personally have the capacity to avoid eating meat. Why don't you stop supporting this industry with your money? Because I view hunting and industrial meat processing differently. I've probably reduced my meat consumption by 90%. And I've also, I went vegetarian for a few years. But I like meat. I like eating stuff. And if I hunted and killed things and ate it, I don't think I would give a shit. I don't think that
In the army.
I actually don't think that eating meat is that big of a deal, like in a hunting context. So hold on. This entire thing is Little Dicky talking to Amaranth about this is like their post-sex conversation. Here we go. So let's just take a look at this real quick, all right? Because this is Little Dicky giving shit to a woman who's giving him shit because he wants to order a meat lover's pizza and he has a carnist excuse for why he does what he does. And wait, is this really Amaranth? No, it's not Amaranth. It just looks like Amaranth. But anyways, let's bring it up real quick.
Eat them? That sure doesn't help. Okay. She like, I'm not opposed to us hunting. But now we not tracking them down, we just breed them to eat, that's disgusting. Hey, you should honestly read on the subject. All right, hold up. Just because we not running around with a bow and arrow doesn't mean we not hunting these chickens. We just set the place to do our hunting intelligently enough to manipulate these animals and get them to do exactly what we want. That's my point, we just incubate animals instead of letting them live how they come. Yeah, but that's your gut at work, bitch. Like, we go hard on Earth. What you think would happen right now if you left my place and there were like 3 wolves waiting for you? Wolves? Bitch, they would tear your ass up. Viciously. Like, they would eat your titties. And your pussy. That's what they do. And your face and shit. Humans are smarter, bitch. That's what we do. She like apples to oranges. Bitch, that phrase don't make no sense. Why can't fruit be compared? She like, I'm gonna leave. It's just all of these conflicting principles. Right. Enjoy your pepperoni pizza. I will. That's my God-given right. She like, what?
All right, anyways, you guys should watch this in general. But effectively what happens, it's actually great. My older brother sent me this, okay? So I was kind of weirded out because the start of this music video has Little Dicky smacking a girl's butt. And I was like, why did my brother send me like a music video with hookups? But it's autistic as shit. And so what happens is after they hook up, they start talking. And once they start talking, Little Dicky has like weird stoner autistic insights into the world about, yeah, why can't fruit be compared? And, you know, basically they talk about like being carnist because she's vegetarian, but she has like a leather wallet. And he's like, you're a fucking hypocrite. Like you consume leather products readily. You love handbags. You know, that comes from industrial slaughter. And yet human beings are at the top of the food chain, which is how we've created industrial agriculture because we wanted, yeah, do you fuck with the war? Oh, man, when I finally get like a play button, like a soundbite button, I'm going to put, do you fuck with the war on it for real. But the Doobie, you added me, but I'm not sure what you're adding me for. It says, but you personally have the capacity to avoid eating meat. Why don't you personally stop supporting the industry with your money? I mean, like, I've reduced my support by 90%. You know what I did? Anyways, I'll get back to the content momentarily. I'm ruining the VOD again. God damn it. So what I did in reference to meat consumption is I realized I did the math on how many animals I was consuming. And so I realized that in order to support my meat habit, I would need to kill 1 cow, 300 fish, and like 300 chickens. And I was like, if I killed that many animals, would I do it? Like if I had to kill 300 fish, if I had to kill 300 chickens, if I had to kill 1 cow every year just to support my meat habit, I wouldn't. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up cutting down my meat consumption substantively. Then I pretty much cut out beef. I only have beef when somebody else cooks it. I never buy beef. Then I reduce my chicken consumption, but I still do it. And then I do eat fish. I actually do not feel bad about fish. Fish are pretty fucking stupid. Doobie says the question is right above it. Why can't fruit be compared? That's the question you want me to answer? Fruit can be compared. That's why apples and oranges don't make sense. Yep. You could replace 300 fish with 1 tuna and 300 chickens with 1 horse-sized chicken. Oh my God. All right. Anyways, you guys are silly. Do you fuck with the war? All right, guys, stop. Okay, stop. We've gotten distracted again. We started talking about animals and meat and consumption and industrial slaughter and all that kind of stuff, but we're supposed to be talking with PF Jung and Destiny about the Jews, and then we need to keep mapping the series of incursions in the Middle East and North Africa that justifies the Zionist perspective. You guys have distracted me once again. Quick chill, like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. We got 2 minutes left on the goal. We hit 7 out of 10 on the goal. Realistically, though, we have had 12 super chats. The Oilers oiled and the chippers chipped. So if you're brokies or you're already oiled or you already chipped, do not worry about it. All right. Oh, okay. The First Crusade started at... No, there's no way the First Crusade started after the conquest of Constantinople. Did the Muslims bypass Constantinople in order to get into southern Greece? I don't know if that's true. Oh, this is Alexander the Great. I don't need Alexander the Great. I need a caliphate map at the time of the First Crusade. Looks like they took Turkey. Yeah, they took Turkey. All right. Anyways, sorry. Back to the content. Let me keep drawing. Where's Pangea? Do you fuck with Pangea? Do you fuck with the war? Did I exit out of the video accidentally? Professional streamer, guys. Professional streamer. God, I'm such a tool. All right, whatever. I guess I'll pull it up. Ooh. Let's do... What is it? Destiny PF Young?
Sometimes people play this game, leftists do this a lot, where they're like, everything bad because when you are, if you're watching, if you're abusing an animal or if you're engaging in watching child pornography, there is a sense of enjoyment that no decent human being should be getting out of it. When somebody eats a cheeseburger, they're not enjoying the suffering of the animal, they're enjoying a cheeseburger. When somebody abuses a dog, they must be a sociopath. Much the same, maybe there's a morbid curiosity or weirdness around watching people getting killed or murdered, although a lot of people, more people than I think many people would have an intuition would probably be okay with like making that illegal to watch. But for enjoying child, there is no curious enjoyment there. You just must be a sociopath to enjoy that. So I feel like that's intuitively, that's why these laws are justified. But I guess like you're going to go on to make the point from like a broad liberal perspective, it's hard to like build out a philosophical argument there that would match our intuitions such that like liberalism has arguably failed here to supply us an answer that satisfies our intuitive ethical feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, what you're describing is a cultivation of vice argument.
Okay.
And that like if you do something that is immoral and disgusting, even if it doesn't hurt anyone in the moment, you poison your psyche in such a way that it eventually leads you to doing terrible things. Like
well,
pulling the wings off flies and all that. It's like, or abusing an animal. You do that over and over again. What doors does that open for you in the future?
Correct.
And
sure, that's an ethical argument more than a legal one, though, because then I would ask.
I agree. This
like,
is not a I'm not making a legal one. I'm doing the underlying philosophy.
Because you brought up like the sea salmon should it be legal or not? But yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I'm not saying should it be legal within the bounds of our current legal framework. I'm saying
I think they're differentiating moral and ethical, where ethical is like broad social prescription and moral is like individual prescription. If I have that correct, somebody tell me. If I don't have it correct, somebody tell me.
Philosophically, within the liberal framework, what is the argument against it? If no one is being exploited or harmed, and it's not animals, so it's not even like a conscious being, whatever type thing, but what is the argument against AI CSAM within the liberal framework without invoking some kind of conservative morality, basically? Because I don't think you can argue against it unless you invoke a principle that is not liberal.
Well, I don't know if I would say liberal framework is necessarily one that, like, I think the liberal framework can emerge from a variety of different moral philosophy. And I don't think I would argue there's like a conservative ethics. I mean, there are like morals or ethics that are heavily associated with conservatism. We're getting a little bit
maybe
in weeds on
I
that,
guess
but
I'm putting forward as a definition, contingent definition for this conversation.
Sure.
Liberalism is the moral philosophy that posits that the highest moral good, that the way that we appraise behaviors is determining whether or not it increases or infringes upon individual autonomy.
Yeah.
And
I mean, moral, you could say that liberals from a liberal framework, like the age of consent exists, or the age of majority. And that's not just applied to sex. It's applied to like signing contracts or entering business deals or doing, or, buying a car or whatever. All related to signing contracts, right? And liberals can broadly defend the idea that minors should have a restriction on their autonomy and rights because they don't have all those same privileges and responsibilities. And then that could easily extend to like the CSAM thing. Like you shouldn't be recording these people engaged in sexual acts.
Correct.
It's not something they can consent to. Yeah.
Right. The argument is because it's AI generated, it eliminates the part where the children themselves are getting harmed.
Sure. I mean, like the boring, let's get rid of the boring argument. Then the boring argument is that, well, what if you have to train it on a data set of real child porn that would make
correct, which is wrong. Someone made that point. I'm like, you can have a bear playing Xbox.
So
that doesn't mean it actually was trained on bears and Xboxes. It's ridiculous.
So we can toss that one.
That's stupid, right?
Agreed. But let's assume it doesn't need like a real training set or whatever else.
Yeah. It's just regular porn, and then it just replaces it with children.
Yeah, you could just justify it based on the fact that like you feel like it would lead to future harms because people would begin engaging with this material in a pornographic way, and then they would
cultivation of vice.
Sure, I guess.
Okay, but then that opens the door to, all right, well, what other things now are like? What other things can we make illegal? Like,
yeah, we do it for tons of things, right? Drugs.
Yeah, right. And I think most people have this. This is my point. This is why I do. I think the liberal, like, there needs to be something more clearly articulated that I think a lot of conservative and post-liberal thinkers have acknowledged, less so the Richard Hanania liberals, of like, there needs to be something else. It can't just be freedom. There needs to be some, but then the question is, what is that? Is it like, and there's like it's an argument of virtue, but now we're deciding, well, what's virtuous and what not? Because the liberal answer is, well, everyone gets to decide what's virtuous as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. It's like, no, we need something else. We need something else. We need like a moral system and a point to guide us. And currently we don't have that. Liberalism kind of undermines that.
Yeah. Liberalism is like it's like hiking gear or whatever. Like you still need a hiker. Like the gear is not going to climb itself. It just enables a bunch of people to climb that or scuba gear or whatever else, whatever snow gear, whatever. Right? Liberalism is not a morality. Liberalism is just a framework by which we organize socially that hopefully can incorporate a ton of different moralities inside of it. Now, some governmental frameworks, as part of the framework, almost beg a morality or automatically incorporate a morality inside of it, which makes the question like very easy. So like for your caliphates, right, your Islamist ideologies that incorporate their religion into their social and governmental framework, well, that's a very easy question. You always have like a common purpose. You're united. For fascist countries or for heavily like socialist or communist countries, arguably the single party rule authoritarian states, like incorporate this kind of like social morality into the government. For liberalism, the reason why it has such a big strength is that it can incorporate so many different types of people, but somehow get them to work together in the same framework. But you can run into the issue of, well, the government is not giving you that strong social fabric that other forms of governments might be giving you automatically. So now you have to find it on your own. And if you assume it's going to come from the system itself, you're going to become very lost and very nihilistic very quickly. And sometimes people are a little bit scared to prescribe a morality because it feels anti-liberal to do so. But the answer is somewhere in there for that. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess but the problem is it's not, and I get like liberalism is pluralistic. It allows from it, and to some degree that's true. But again, if it's pluralistic in a way that, hey, your neighbor is watching AI CSAM, you are now heading down a path of creating psychological degenerates. And there's even like transhuman stuff of like, I saw a service that allows you to create digital AI avatars of your dead family and friends.
Okay.
It's like that should be illegal. Well, you say why?
Okay.
Because if we live in a world where mentally ill people are surrounded by digital avatars of their dead family and friends, we're creating a world of psychopaths. And there's just something profane about that we should avoid, because it will destroy just the basic.
Sure. And I mean, these are opinions you can have, but like,
you can't argue,
or,
but you can't argue from that within the social liberal framework, meaning the individual autonomy thing.
No, you can. There's a ton of drugs are a great example of things that we've totally deprived individuals of. How the fuck can the government tell me I'm not allowed to do fucking ecstasy? That's crazy. I should be allowed to do as much MDMA as I want. That's wild to me. That
Wait, do you believe that?
Yeah, of course. The fuck?
Do you think heroin should be legal?
I would argue, yeah. Although maybe more restrictions or maybe more difficulty to access or whatever bullshit. But like, yeah, I mean, like if we're talking within like a liberal framework and individuals have the right to pursue these types of things, I think arguably, yeah.
Okay, well, we would disagree. I mean, even in Portugal, first off, I think in Oregon they did that and then repealed it, but that there's confounding variables there that you can't.
Yeah, sorry, I've been ignoring chat, but I've been drawing. Have you seen the AI dead relative thing? Yeah. And I don't think that you could ban it, or at least I don't think the First Amendment would allow you to ban it right now, because like, who are you to tell me that I can't digitize my dead relatives and take videos of them and have them, talk to me as AI chat bots or whatever? It is weird though. It is like the preliminary things of digitizing human consciousness. Dia de los Muertos would love AI loved ones. Yeah, bro, they really would. They really would. Like, dude, Mexicans with AI chatbot dead relatives, that's gonna be fire. Like, dude, like two things are popping into my mind right now. Number one, Caprica. Caprica is the prequel to Battlestar Galactica, where somebody does that. They lose their kids in a terrorist attack that one of their a suicide bombing that one of their kids actually perpetuates. And so a mad scientist loses his mind and he digitizes the human consciousness of his daughter, and he digitizes the human consciousness of a mourning father. And the digitized human consciousnesses are so real, they're so accurate to what the daughters were, that they end up taking on personalities of their own and then exploring digital space. And then that's actually how Cylons, the robotic race from Battlestar Galactica, that's actually how they get their human soul. They have digitized human consciousnesses that imprint themselves onto the robots. And then as a result of that, they develop human-like personalities and what could be described as like proto-sapiens. And that's how the Cylon race of robotic creatures is born. So that popped into my head. The other thing that popped into my head was, Altered Carbon. So Altered Carbon has a alien technology that allows you to digitize your consciousness and transport it between bodies. And so there's arguments about whether or not that conscious experience is actually the same thing or if it's just a digital copy. But the truth is that the digital copies don't really know that they're copies, and so they kind of act like the thing. And so it's really weird, because it's like the teleporter question from Star Wars. Like, is that the same person, or is it an identical atomic copy of that person that doesn't know that they're a copy? Like, the conscious experience that ended on one side of the teleporter, is that person dead? And is the person on the other side a new thing, or is it the same thing? And so Altered Carbon deals with that as well. And they do that with Dia de los Muertos. They actually have the digital puck. They have the puck, and the puck people can pay on Dia de los Muertos in order to bring back their dead relatives just for the day. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty fun. It's pretty interesting.
Necessarily at the feet of
sure, but people in Oregon are fucking losers. So.
Horace God says, now we'll have digital relatives powered by Grok roaming the digital underground making Holocaust jokes. True. I'm going to reset the goal. It's getting later in the day. Oilers have oiled, chippers have chipped, but I'm going to reset the goal. We did hit 7 out of 10, but we have 12 super chats on the day. And of course, Christian Valeris and Grassroots Hegemon oiled the shit out of chat. So I'm going to thank everybody before we continue on with the content. Doobie for 10, Doobie for 10, Old School for 10, Big Leafy Tree for 7, Real Serious for 100 ARS, Grassroots for 60 via $20 super chats, Christian Valeris with a whopping $300 super chat. Holy shit. Thank you for the Oil King. Michael H with the $1.50 super sticker, Fell Runner with the 5, and then Grassroots with the 5 gifted. Thank you, kings and queens.
True. But in Portugal, it's worked out much better.
Yeah. Doobie says there's a show called Uploaded that explores a similar thing. Basically, they start uploading brains into a digital space when someone is dying, and you have subscription tiers. Yeah, I saw that one. When I saw them go into a lower subscription tier, I was like, wow, that's depressing. That's mad depressing.
As far as I know from my research on it. But they still force people to do treatment sometimes.
Yeah, I think you should. I do believe,
but that's technically outside of the social liberal. Again, when I mean social,
I don't
liberal,
agree.
I mean
I think you have to be careful not to, because sometimes people play this game. Leftists do this a lot, where they're like, everything bad comes from capitalism. You're like, oh, well, what about the increase in standard of living? We got things like, we have a minimum wage, and they're like, oh no, those things are socialism. And it's like, okay, well, what about like all these employees that are making so much more money now? And that was guaranteed by a socialist aspect of the government. So we can't say that like all the good things that liberalism has given us. Well, that's not liberalism.
Saying that at all. No.
Okay, my bad.
My point. I agree. Liberalism got us to the greatest point, arguably, in human history in terms of like flourishing economic wealth. But it just becomes a diminishing returns thing to a point of negative returns. It's like the same system that got us all these marginal returns, but started to diminish. And now we're in the point of like actually we're innovating new things that are actually making life worse.
Sure.
And my point is, if we continue down that trajectory, that's bad. And within the social liberal, which is effectively a libertarian, I mean, I would use those identically, like social liberalism, maximizing individual autonomy, is essentially a social libertarian policy or philosophy. There needs to be something outside of it. And it seems to me that the things that speak to people's intuitions that are outside of it are basically conservative or religious, traditional.
I just totally reject this like conservative, socially liberal. Like I think that liberalism is a form of governance. And I think the idea of respecting the age of individual autonomy, that's not like a moral statement. That's like a blanket statement you have to make in order to assume underneath you multiple competing moral frameworks. That's how that works. So for instance,
these guys need to watch J-Reg's Frame Worthless. Okay, I agree that Destiny is stating that liberalism is the governing philosophy that allows to tolerate a whole bunch of different moral frameworks underneath it, and it's actually up to semi-sovereign individuals to choose what moral framework works best for them. And I think that's how liberalism and libertarianism broadly work in our modern society. And I think the dynamism of free societies compared to authoritarian societies has proved itself out historically. However, I also think that P.F. Jung is correct, that there's a certain amount of like social degradation and alienation and isolationism and atomization, to use a lefty term, that has happened that is actually socially bad. Like our loss of identity, our loss of social tribalism, our loss of collective responsibility. Those are things that are bad, and it takes something more in order to make society good. And so my curiosity, I'm looking for like a good term that would actually catch what we're trying to do. But effectively and P.F. Jung argues that it's post-liberalism. I don't think it is post-liberalism. But there needs to be something more than liberalism to allow for the freedoms and privileges and wealth that we enjoy, but it also calls humans to higher behavior. And I don't know if that's like, you know how managed democracy is the Helldivers 2 meme, where it's supposed to be democratic, but it's managed by a centralized state that actually controls all the voting. It's kind of like that. It's like ordered liberalism or something, or it's Republican liberalism, I don't know what's the extra thing that's going to add the spice to liberalism to actually make it complete. And I don't know what that thing is, and I'm kind of like smashing my brain against a wall in order to try to figure it out. Anyways, like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. We're doing good. We're getting through these couple of things, and then I want to check out why the enemy is true nihilism once we get through the next 2 chapters. I do want to break down my drawing real quick because I think I've done it, and this is where I get frustrated with Doobie and Doobie characters, because I think that this is a accurate story of the Jewish people based off of geography. Okay. So Abraham, who is estimated to live around 1400 before Christ, he was promised by God this territory from the Nile River to the Euphrates. That's what he was promised by God. And he was told that his descendants would outnumber the stars and outnumber the grains of sand on the beach and this, that, the other. Now, we don't have to take this. This is just like, I'm being descriptive. I'm not saying this is morally good, bad, whatever. I don't really give a shit. And then Joseph was a descendant of Abraham who went into the kingdom of Egypt and became an advisor and powerful in the kingdom of Egypt. And then his descendants lived in Egypt for a few generations. Moses was the person who led the Exodus, which is estimated approximately the same time as Tutankhamun, because there was a documented exodus of Semitic people from the land of Egypt around that time. And so it's estimated that Moses going into the Sinai, developing the 10 Commandments, ruling the people and conquering the new kingdom of Israel and Judah, it's estimated that that started around 1200 before Christ. Ancient Israel and Judah, I drew an approximate map of what it was, which weirdly enough actually lines up with the modern state of Israel. The Babylonians conquered Israel and sent them into exile. The Persians conquered Babylon almost immediately after that. The Greeks conquered this territory under Alexander the Great. The Romans then rode the backs of the Greeks in order to conquer this territory. The Muslims, and this is the Roman conquest of the Middle East and North Africa was actually when Jesus was born, and this is the world that he was born into. It's actually, in my opinion, arguable that Jesus was a Hellenized Jew, a Greekified Jew, somebody who was aware of Plato and Socrates and the pagan gods and all that kind of shit, right? Now, Islam, I forget when the Prophet Muhammad was born, peace be upon him, but I think it was like 300 to 500 years after Christ. But effectively, Islam spreads and conquers North Africa and also takes all of the Eastern Roman Empire except for Constantinople itself. And then the Crusader invasions come in and they take Constantinople, the immediately surrounding territories, southern Turkey, and the eastern Mediterranean. But that only lasts for a generation. And the sack of Jerusalem, I believe, is one of the major things that starts the diaspora, if you will. Okay. And so all the Jews are like, you know what, fuck it, we're tired of getting slaughtered. So they go everywhere, including Eastern Europe and Europe. They go to Afghanistan, modern Pakistan, Persia, Iraq. They were already in Ethiopia, but some of them spread into Egypt and also go into Ethiopia and the former kingdoms of Nubia. And some of them go to Spain, and they also go through North Africa, right? Time to watch Kingdom of Heaven. Yes, indeed. And then what I would say is this is from, I could probably put some years in here, but this lasts from like 1066 or something, some year in there, all the way up till the 19th century. And then the 19th century is a European Jewish attempt to return to the ancient kingdom of Israel and Judah, even though they're secularists, because they believe that the Jewish people need a sovereign state in order to protect their well-being. And so during the British Mandate, even more European Jews returned to what used to be ancient Israel and Judah. And then World War II is a huge kick in the ass for the Jewish people of Europe, where they're like, hey, a third of the Jewish population of the world just got wiped out. Maybe we do need a sovereign state. And there's two places that people go after World War II. Realistically, it's the United States and it's Israel. Now, the Nakba and reverse Nakba is kind of a meme, but the Nakba is where the Jews who are in there, once the Brits pull out and the mandate is over, they declare independence, and basically who attacked who, up for debate, but they do ethnic cleansings, right? Where there's effectively a bunch of Palestinian cities and villages that are in the territory that the Jews want. The surrounding Arab nations attack the fledgling nation of Israel, and they use that as an excuse to say, hey, the Palestinians, get the fuck out, right? Now, the reverse Nakba is in response to the independence of the state of Israel. All of the Middle Eastern and North African nations, they also expel or strongly encourage their Jewish communities to leave their country. It was like 6 or 7 of these. It was like 6 or 7 ethnic expulsions. And so what ends up happening is the Jewish population of the planet is now concentrated in 2 places. The population has now recovered to about 16 million people, which was the same population before World War II. And basically 14 million people live in 2 places. 6 or 7 million of them live in the United States. 6 or 7 million of them live in Israel. True. 6, 7. Then an additional 2 million live worldwide. There's Chinese Jews, there's Pakistani Jews, there's Afghan Jews, there's Iranian Jews, but they're such a small minority, they're effectively ignored by people. There's also Jews in Europe still. They're effectively ignored because there's such a small percentage of the states that they're a part of. And then modern Israel is this map that kind of replicates the ancient kingdom of Israel and Judah. But then if you look at some modern Zionist colonialist organizations, they draw maps showing a territory that comprises of the original promise to Abraham. So, yeah, and that's what's going on. And so the future of the Israeli state is kind of up in the air. Are they going to ethnically cleanse the West Bank and Gaza? Are they going to push these people out? That way there's just an Israeli state with a continuous border that is actually almost identical to the ancient kingdom of Israel and Judah. Are they going to stay exactly where they are and have a 2-state solution? Are they going to get wiped off of the face of the planet by the United States abandoning it and a bunch of Middle Eastern and North African nations attacking them simultaneously? No one really knows. And so that's kind of where we're at. Now, responding to chat real quick, just because you guys said some silly things. I feel so weird when he thanks me, laugh my ass off. Well, it's going to keep happening. Samson 484 says something between anarchism and authoritarianism is the answer, some form of liberalism. Sure, but how do you articulate that in a way that's compelling to individuals? Samson says that might be too reductive. It's definitely reductive. There's no doubt that I'm missing vast swaths of history, but effectively I've summarized like 3,400 years of history. And so, yeah, you're not going to get that in a 20-minute summary, but then just saying it's reductive is not complex enough. You have to tell me what I got wrong, right? Fellow Runner says, you may need to stop talking about Israel. It always kills the viewership. They're cowards. Nah, it happens. It happens. We're at 3 hours and 40 minutes. I was probably 10 or 20 minutes late. Normally around 2 p.m. Well, what time is it right now? Yeah, it's like 1:20, 1:30. Normally around 2 p.m. some other people go live. Lonerbox jumps in, Hutch jumps in. The Destiny starts streaming Arc Raiders, and 20 people go look at Arc Raiders, and they're like, we'll go back to Connor yapping about the Jews again. So, it happens. It happens. Other guy says, you son of a bitch. True. Oy vey. This is a serious topic, Connor. True. Sam, reductive is too reductive. A way to put it. Laugh my ass off. True. Doggy. True. Connor, you done good, son. Thank you, Fell Runner. Doobie for $10 says, why should we take the religious claim seriously? Look up the B'nai Menashe. Can you tell me why they have a stronger claim to Israel than Palestinians descending from ancient Levantines? No. I don't take the religious claim specifically seriously. I do not think that the creator of the universe specifically promised Abraham this territory to exclusively Jews. Once again, I think religion is a vehicle for morality that we should treat as like pseudo history, but definitely mythology with elements of truth in it. Did God promise Israel to the Palestinians? No, then take this L. Well, arguably, Muhammad himself said that this territory was going to be Muslim and that the planet would not know peace until Islam ruled the entire planet, and the Christians and the Jews could be tolerated as peoples of the book, but they should not have state power. Connor, I only cheat on you when you're not streaming. That's morally good. True. Patriarch says, did God promise? That's the one that I just responded to. Samson 484 says, true. I think the atrocities from both sides should be talked about more. Yeah. Yeah, and just because, like, guys, I'm a very tepid Zionist. I'm a very tepid Philo-Semite. But the reason why I'm a tepid Philo-Semite, as a matter of fact, this drawing will kind of show you why I'm a tepid Philo-Semite. I'm gonna go pull another Google map and I'm gonna draw something else. Doobie is gonna hate it, but yeah. Pisco says, "Hey Connor, want to chat?" Yes, I do. Yes, I do want to chat. That would be an excellent way. It was probably Pisco who stole 20 to 30 viewers. So let me call Pisco real quick. Let me save this. Let me put in a text thing. Islam's control of territory versus Jewish control of territory map. And then I will finish this up when we're arguing with Doobie again about the state of Israel. Doobie says, you support a Jewish ethno-state. No, I don't. I support a Jewish majority state. The B'nai Menashe have only been Jewish since the 1950s when their leader had a vision that claimed they're Israelites. Why do they have more of a right to the land? They don't. They don't. Old School $5 says, to convince Connor to play Cyberpunk 2077 fun and get in deep into how the game treats digitized consciousness. Cool, Old School. I know we fight about a lot of stuff, but I appreciate the chips towards my digital habit. Let me go ahead and pull in Pisco Liddy real quick. And I'm going to have him entertain you while I use the restroom. Hey, you're going to be live for a bit. Want to chat? Wait, I need 10 minutes. He said that at 1:15. So he needs 10 minutes. That's okay. We'll keep watching this for 10 minutes while he gets ready.
Two people might be ideologically opposed on the matter of gay marriage, but liberalism can incorporate both of those people to work together in the same society. Liberalism is not making a moral statement about gay marriage. It's just creating the framework by which both people can exist. So liberalism can allow people to ban CSAM and ban child porn or not, or do whatever. Yeah. But if you're looking to that government framework for your morality, you're going to have a big problem. And I do agree, by the way, that a lot of people do this and it is problematic. And I think that's where some of your intuition is coming from, where it's like, well, how is liberalism going to solve, XYZ problems? And I'm telling you, well, it's not a moral system. And that feels stupid to you because there are some people that maybe do appeal to it as a moral system. And I agree that is an issue when people do that. Yeah. And you feel lost and nihilistic when you do that sometimes. Yeah.
That's fair. Okay. I ran into the same issue with Connor. Counterpoints. Yeah, I guess I'm putting forward that when I'm defining liberalism, I'm defining it a different way because I agree.
And also, I would say that I disagree with Stephen here as well. Liberalism is not a value-neutral moral system. Okay, authoritarianism is another style of political governance. It also can be evaluated for whether or not it's good or bad. Liberalism, the maximum tolerance of human freedom, could be evaluated for whether or not it's good or bad. So liberalism, while it tries to be a value neutral system, I actually do not think that it is. I don't think it's value neutral. I think that it does say individual human liberty is good and should be pursued.
Agree with you that like the checks and balance system and some level of pluralism is good and necessary. I am putting forward liberalism as social liberalism, that which puts individual autonomy over all else. But I understand your point. Because I'm not going to let you define it in such a way that obviously makes it bad when there's other good things and people.
Well, I'm just saying. My question is, when you say social liberalism defines individuality above all else, like are taxes part of social liberalism? Or social security, or all forms of welfare, or public transportation? These all exist, right?
Yeah. But again, the neoliberalism, the economic model, is about low taxes and deregulation. So that is kind of the point. Like the opposite. I mean, you could say socialism when the government does stuff, but like it is technically more economically anti-liberal to put money in like a universal healthcare type thing because that's eliminating individual autonomy.
Well, if you're going to define it that strictly, I guess maybe, but then that's even less.
That's fair. Well, yeah, fair enough. This is what a lot of the post-liberal Patrick Deneen. You know Dave the Distributist by any chance?
Nope. What does he distribute?
He does.
Post-liberal thinking. And then even JD Vance, I think operates by this framework This is how they're defining liberalism. So at minimum, if it helps clarify things like, well, liberalism has failed because this and this. Obviously, they can also be sneaking in like other stuff like.
Yeah,
Actually,
I would say when I hear
hold on.
somebody
You're
say,
right. No, hold on. You're 100% right because there's also there's liberalism, social liberalism. That's, what I'm coming from. Then there's we need a single chief unitary executive to, take like Caesarian authority, which is explicitly a political thing. So yes, there is that too.
yeah, like I would say when people are saying liberalism has failed, what they're actually saying is they don't like a lot of the underlying moral philosophies that are kind of flourishing in our current society, and they would prefer to choose others. That's why they don't often say that like liberalism has failed or bad. They would say we need to go back to the liberalism we had in the 50s and 60s. That was better. Right. Well, there were moral philosophies that were more prominent at the time.
Yeah, because the argument is that like, well, many classical liberals, who we call classical liberals now, said specifically, this only works if the populace is like free in the positive freedom sense, like the original Socrates classic liberty or like classical definition of liberty, which is like self-restraint. Liberty meant the ability to self-govern, like having virtue and being free from hedonism is liberty. Hedonism was seen as the opposite of liberty, and so but it transformed over the last couple centuries to, well, no, liberty just meant freedom to do whatever you want. That's my point. But yes, you are right that then there's a direct attacks on the political system, which is a separate thing. I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I'm certainly open to the possibility that our current government system, as it's set up, in its noble effort to resist tyranny, it just becomes a type 1, type 2 error thing. The rigidity that allows it to prevent tyranny also makes it rigid enough where it's not able to adapt quick enough to the problems at hand, whether it's AI, environmental, whatever. Okay. And so the idea that you do need a FDR-like figure who comes in with sweeping executive authority to change things so the system can get back on track, I'm open to that possibility. Of course, that the idea that doesn't also carry a significant amount of risk, if not more risk than the rigidity itself, people who say that are demented. But I'm curious,
how do you say liberalism has failed and not the people have failed or the culture has failed or technology has failed?
Well, that's
Why is liberalism that gets the blame there?
Because I think when people talk about, I guess it just becomes I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be using these terms. I mean, I'm just positing that as a definition of liberalism. I mean,
the only reason why I asked this is because so I would have believed, I would have publicly stated, well, I wouldn't have lied. I would have said, I would say oh, technocracies are bad ideas because they overrepresent some people and those people might have blind spots around certain issues and blah, 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 right? But I'd say, well, I don't know. But honestly, maybe a technocracy would be a good thing if we had more competent people in different areas of government. I've totally wiped away that now. I don't know if people are capable of making those judgments or evaluations based on how I've seen how absolutely fundamentally retarded, like Andreessen, or well, you might like these people, sorry. I would say, broadly speaking, the crypto finance tech community has acted
me. I appreciate that.
With regards to politics. I would say I have no faith in a technocracy now. So I guess if there was this area that I could identify of hyper competent people and they were ready to take the reins on government and do all these things, but then for some reason liberalism was preventing them from doing it and not the people, and we just switched the government, this would be better. I'm just not fully convinced that switching the government here or switching from liberalism to something else, what do you think we could switch from liberalism to that would ameliorate some, a lot of the problems that you think we're facing today?
Yes.
Okay, I want to show you guys this as well because this is an argument that I don't necessarily agree with because, when you use collective arguments, it oftentimes dismisses individuals. And so using this argument could dismiss the autonomy, sovereignty, and dignity of Palestinians. But I do think that it's something worth thinking about in reference to our utilitarian calculus. So here, I agree with, somebody said that my narrativization of the Israeli people might be overly reductive, and I agree that it could be. But I have effectively used Google Maps in order to articulate what I believe to be the current narrative of what happened to the Israeli people over the past 3,400 years. Now, what Doobie says, which kind of prompted this drawing is, why do the Israelis or the Jews have any more of a right to claim this territory than anybody else? What about Jews who said that they're the correct, they were chosen by God's people within the past 2 or 3 decades? What about, the Palestinians who have lived there for centuries? And when we look at competitive religious dynamics where the Jewish people are 15 million people and Islam are what are they, like 2 of 4 billion people, and then Christians are 2 of 4 billion people on the planet. My frustration with this narrativization is effectively it's like, if we don't give a fuck about land, why can't the Jews have this, do a two-state solution and call it a day? Like, is there not enough land and resources and cities and polities and oil and gas and tree and rubber and, you know, spices and all that bullshit? Is there not enough within the territory that I've highlighted in green for the people who are Muslim? Right? And I know that would be like saying we should carve off, you know, the American people should just carve off certain places for a foreign nation. But we kind of already do that with the tribal system. We already do that with the semi-sovereign Native American tribal system. And so why can't Islam or Muslim or the Ummah or the Caliphates or whatever, why can't they do a similar sovereign state within their borders called the State of Israel? Do they have to have a Muslim that rules that territory? So that's kind of my question. But I think I did an okay job on this drawing. Let's keep this playing while we're okay. Pisco still needs 3 minutes.
I agree with you on all this. It's not clear to me. Well, first off, again, I'm using the terms that these, you know, Patrick Deneen is a fairly mainstream thinker within the conservative movement. And they use the term post-liberals and all that. I think a lot of post-liberalism is just essentially trying to rescue original liberalism from itself. It's not actually trying to move into something entirely new. Some people are putting, I mean, like the Kurdish.
Daggerung says, "Don't worry, Jews. We'll treat you the way the Americans treated the Native Americans. No big deal." Doobie says, "Why are you thinking this about along religious lines? You earlier said that the religious claims aren't important because that's the easiest way to divide these people. It would be like talking about the Iraq Civil War and mentioning Sunni and Shia. Whether or not the line of descendants through the Sunni belief of line of descendants or Shia line of descendants doesn't really affect who should control what, but it's true that Shia are disproportionately congregated in the south and east of Iraq, and the Sunni are disproportionately congregated in the north and west of Iraq. And if you wanted to design a polity where people stuck to themselves, but they were under the same government, you would have to acknowledge that geographic reality. Same thing with Ireland, right? Like 90% of the people who live in Northern Ireland are Protestant. Like 99% of the people who live in Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, are Catholic. And so I'm not saying that Catholicism or Protestantism are better interpretations of Christianity. I'm saying that understanding that religious demographic data is important to know how you're going to draw the borders. If you're going to draw borders.
Curtis Yarvin.
Wouldn't this kind of be like, speaking to Canadians, Americans, and Mexicans along religious lines, there are varied nations with varied histories, cultures, and interests? Yeah, but I kind of feel like in the Western world, we're kind of like post-schism. And what I mean by that is like the religious schisms of Orthodox versus Catholic was more important 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. The important differences between Catholic or Protestant, those were more important 50 to 70 years ago. Now we have a ton of Catholics in the United States, and it's not viewed as like an existential threat to the United States of America. So we've kind of moved past Catholicism and Protestantism and Frenchness. I do parasocially love you. I'll see you tomorrow. I hope you have a beautiful day. Go enjoy another one of your favorite streamers.